How's it going, everyone? I think it's good. It shows excellent connection. It shows a preview window loading. We're here! Hooray! Welcome to another episode of No Excuses on YouTube.com. The favorite show hosts are still.
And Warcell, and as you can tell by the way we began the show, there is no Fern to run the rig this week because Fern is busy flailing around being an adult. That is to say, he's doing his job. That is to say, he's porting drunken cowboys all over the place because they are in their pre-show for their big rodeo, I believe, and apparently they're in a state where nobody has sobered up in several days and nobody can walk, so they need Fern to drive them everywhere.
Yep.
So he's not here, and we are here, and we are going to attempt to deliver a show of some form.
Yep. I'm running the rig like usual when Fern's not here. I will attempt to get this thing operable. We're trying a few new things this time with the duo show. I've got it set up so we can actually go to break now. When the sound cuts out and the logo pops up, just fast forward through until the logo goes away again. And you will be back at the show. It shouldn't be more than about 5 minutes tops. So, on the show today, we have I'm getting tired of deep dungeons. I just need a bit of a break from them. While they're a good go-to, we've been going to them nonstop, and I did the big grind outside of the show, so I'm a bit burnt on those and kind of want to take a break for several weeks. we can load those back up another time after I've had some time to catch my breath with it. And I'm going to take Vaul to Zadnor, and we're just going to run around. And I don't remember much. Oh, I do. It just my brain won't be focused on Zadnor. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. I don't have my bars set up the way they used to be. I'm tried to remake them as close as I could before the show.
Well, you aren't going to be doing any duels, so it'll be fine.
Yeah, the Vaul will probably die on all the critical encounters because a bunch of them have gotcha mechanics, and that's okay. Happens to everybody here.
Yeah, I don't know what any of those are. I don't remember them.
Yeah, when in doubt, just follow the pink Dark Knight. Yeah.
First of all, I need to grab some essences because I don't know. I don't remember any of that shit. So.
Yeah. So for safety's sake, I'm going to first check and make sure there's people in this instance, and we didn't. Dead one, we did. I hate that you can just get dead instances sometimes, or a fresh instance, I should say. Just actually. So we'll give it a little bit and see if okay, it's filling up. We're good. So we're gonna be running around here, just doing random stuff in the background while we talk about our weeks and go over the news, and we'll take it from there and just go as we go. No fancy stuff in Zadnor, no tricks happening while I'm running the rig at the same time. No stuff to show off. Maybe when Fern's here, if he feels like doing it too, I can split my attention that way. But walking and chewing bubblegum is difficult for me, so we're not going to try and do any of the fancy stuff like running around and doing death pack kills and weird healer shenanigans. We're just going to play Dark Knight and shove all the ropes.
And spend a lot of time standing in a crater.
Probably.
The crater.
Yeah, if this instance doesn't have people in it in 20 minutes, we're going to leave and pick another one. So yeah. This week for weeks, we have no Fern to get us started. It's always awkward when Fern isn't here because I'm used to him.
Yeah, I use him as a ramp up opportunity.
Yeah, Fern's real good at being the dude that. I gotta turn my thing. Actually, I'm doing this with a partner for once. But I need to. I'm used to him, getting us started and talking about his weeks, which are usually smaller and focus on more indie stuff instead of being bigger topics that we talk about a lot. So we don't have that when Fern's not here, and so we just kind of got to go for it. So yeah, I guess we'll do that. You can start with your week. We'll roll from there.
Right. So I had a mixed week at work. The early part of the week was extremely busy, and the late part of the week was comparatively quiet. But being that I'm the manager, I don't really have quiet days in the conventional sense. So I still didn't have a lot of free time. I worked pretty much apart from yesterday. I worked pretty much 12-hour days every day. Really, being on a salary doesn't pay. Get hourly rates. Get hourly rates.
Or write your
Unless
own
you could get.
salary.
Well, yes, that's also an option. Except that that usually requires owning your own business and being at the vicissitude of Bidenomics. But yeah, so I had a very mixed week as far as what free time I had. And most of the time it boiled down to not a great deal. Let's see. So what happened this week? As far as the gacha is concerned, the final part of Avalon Lafay launched, and that came with the Oberon banner. The Oberon banner being one of the most important to the meta things that it's going to happen all year. And I did get Oberon, but I had to roll all the way to pity for it. So it cost me 900 quartz, which is good then that I didn't have to spend too much quartz on my previous couple banners that I pulled on because I needed it. I needed it badly.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah.
logged on to collect the free goodies that accrue over time naturally in gotchas if you have an account and just leave it AFK like I do, and to throw some stuff at the Oberon banner. I didn't get him for once. I for once didn't get something I threw quartz at.
Yeah, it seems like that Oberon is a bit of a stingy bastard.
Yeah. Now, granted, I only had like 120 quartz and a whole pile of tickets, like
Yeah,
40 tickets.
Unlike normal, even though I had to pull all the way to got an axle. Even though I had to pull all the way to pity, it wasn't as though this time I got nothing. So in addition to getting one copy of Oberon at pity, I have now got Gawain at NP3 and Tristan at NP4 and Fey Knight Gawain Barguest at NP5, and I got 6 copies of Fey Knight Tristan Bavanchi. So, so yeah, I've got 2 new NP5 servants and 2 other Knights of the Round Table that are at high NP levels as a result of that banner.
I did get a single copy of Fate Knight Gawain, so I got Team Gawain. So I was happy with that. I'll take that.
Yes, she's a very solid slow playbuster servant generally.
I just wanted her for the memes.
The meta currently favors Buster is the sort of optimal universal farmer because they don't care about refund, but it requires a very expensive meta shell to make it work compared to arts farming, which just requires a Castoria of your own. So, but it's it's not exactly a meme build, but it's I don't know. I do resent the meta, but I need the meta. I can't live without it because I need the free time. I can't afford to always be doing the long play ways of taking down the complicated stages. So yeah. So I don't really know that I'll use Bavanchi or Barguest very much. Simply because I don't have time to indulge in that style of play, and like both of them are they are servants that fall into that category that they are definitely not bad servants, but they're just I don't know where you went.
Yeah, no, I was.
Because I don't know the names of any of these places.
Go to the one that starts with an H.
They're both servants that are definitely good, like relative to in an absolute sense the skill is quite good relative to other skills of its type, and the combination of them works well, and so on and so forth, and you can get good output from them, and they've got good properties for use in various situations. But in spite of all of that, nevertheless, they're just sort of just barely shy enough of optimal that usually want to use something a bit more meta if you've got the option. Which is sort of, in one way, it's sort of a bit sad because you don't really want to just, be the meta slave. But the meta is so far above other modes of play in terms of efficiency that there's not really any good reason not to use it if you can. So, yeah, it is what it is. Like, for instance, Fey Knight Tristan is a very good single target archer, like capable of a large amount of output, like really effective output. The problem is that there are just better options for doing the same job. So why use her? And that's what it boils down to a lot of the time with a lot of these servants. Bar Guest, like, is a similar situation in the sense that, well, it's not like she's bad. She's an extremely good Buster Slowplay servant. But in what situation do you want to use Buster Slowplay if you don't have to?
Yeah, it's either the strategies themselves are just so much less efficient if you're not doing the meta, or the characters themselves. We're talking magnitudes of power that are millions of points of damage difference. Like the difference is like maybe like 800,000 for a mediocre character to multiple millions you can get up to with the shenanigans of the meta that and loop with it. It's just the power discrepancy is just huge.
Oh, no. Red chocobos.
Yeah, oh, don't be nearby when it spawns. Get to the crater.
I'm trying to get away from it. I went the wrong way, that's all.
Yeah, I will. I'll mark the crater on the ground.
But yeah, so I haven't made much progress in Avalon Le itself. It's a long chapter that has seemed longer as a result of the fact that my play of it has been extremely broken up over time, partly because of the fact that it actually manifests in a broken up way, and partly because I just haven't had as much time to work on it. But it has got a bit of it does feel a little bit are they still on Namek at times? Because it's just there's so much going on in the story, and it happens over such a diverse number of locations and over such a long period of in-universe time that it's kind of a little bit hard to grasp that it's all part of the same story at times. Most of the time when I think about the Lost Belts and the Singularities, it's like, oh yeah, I could see them making an anime season out of this, like either a 12 or a 24 episode season or something like that. But I can't say I really feel that way about Avalon Le Fay. My impression is usually more along the lines of, if they made one of these, it would be one of those like 52 episode long Gundam series.
Oh,
It
one of them.
it would not be tellable in a core or even two cores. I don't think the story is just sprawls too far and has too many characters. I don't know what's going on.
There's just a whole bunch of crap, and there's meteors. He's dropping them all on me. So that other guy was nearby when it spawned, so it got massively scaled for how few people are out here. So it's
Right, I just moved away from everything because I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, when the meteor storm ends, he's got like another minute before he does another one, so got a while.
Right.
The chicken's almost dead anyway, but I've still got a horde of chickens and the boss. The boss also has the smallest telegraphed AoE in the world, and it will one-shot tanks.
Oh, fabulous.
But it's itty-bitty and just directly in front of him in a square box randomly. Okay, back to the crater.
Yeah, so I'm still enjoying it, and it's sort of hard to tell where the story is going to wind up because there's so many players involved with so many different agendas that are apparently seem to be branching off of multiple timelines or something. I'm not even really sure. I don't know what the status is of the villains or their dispositions, or the heroes or their dispositions for that matter. I'm not sure what side half the cast are on, or if everybody's on their own side. The story has just sort of gotten ridiculously complicated, and everybody seems to want to go off on their own and do their own thing.
Yeah, this one, I have heard that it just sprawls on and on and on, and has
It really seems to, and I am interested in seeing how the story plays out, but it's a lot more work to read than a lot of other stories. Like, I blew through Eden Treaty really fast. I didn't have any problem with that. But this story is like, I half the time I feel like I have to stop and take notes or something.
yeah,
Which is, in fact, you don't. The only reason you don't is that there is a notes tab on the map screen, which keeps track of the timeline for you. Because if you did not have it, you would not be able to remember all the history lessons they give you.
yeah. It seems like Nasu's at a point where how do I how do I describe this? He doesn't have to listen to his editors anymore.
Well, I
He-
mean, that's the example I gave last week when I was talking about it, that it was like the fifth Harry Potter book. In the sense it was just like, it was as long as they wanted, as the author wanted it to be, and covered as many topics as the author wanted to cover. And there was not really any limits on them. There were no breaks were applied. So
Did
yeah.
uh did this story get written during the bad times?
I don't remember exactly. I don't remember exactly. It was, it would have been written exactly 2 years ago, because the reason why it was delayed was because it was not perfectly finished yet, or at least the assets certainly weren't. I don't know when the story was drafted. Like, I don't know how much of the story of an arc Nasu writes in one go, or if he just outlines it at the start. Could go either way, really. But yeah, it's certainly a sprawling story, and it's not wholly a bad thing. Like, you wouldn't become a fan of Type Moon if you didn't just like marinating in a setting that's just full of information that you can just wallow in and spend a long time learning. But it's not as readable as a lot of other material. It feels a lot more like the experience of reading say Heaven's Feel,
Yeah.
where you're just constantly getting drowned in information and esoterica.
Yeah, like you're getting thrown into a wiki dive mid story.
Yeah, and what's more, it's complicated by the fact that it's like actually doing the wiki dive, in the sense that there are multiple actors seeding the environment with multiple pieces of misunderstood information and misinformation as they go.
Yeah.
To use that dread word
Yeah.
in its proper sense, and that the people that are writing it think it's correct, but it's not. But that's like a significant portion of the information that you will be supplied in the story of Avalon LaFay is not correct, but it's correct as far as the people giving you the information know. Sometimes people are just actively misleading you. But yeah, so it's like the wiki dive in that you are being told a bunch of stuff is true, and you don't really have uh, any reason to, well, you don't have any option but to trust it, because you don't have any other information. But realistically, there's not really a good reason that you should trust it, since everybody else, like, the way they try and ameliorate this to some extent is by um laying the groundwork early on, that when you get to Fey Britain, that as a general rule, fairies don't lie. They're just, they are no longer incapable of it the way that they were earlier on in history, because they've spent enough time with humans to sort of, get the picture. But they're no longer good at it. They're still not good at it, because the idea is that normally fairies in their natural state have something called fey eyes, which basically mean that they can always tell if somebody is being insincere. Like, they can see through to people's intentions
Mm-hmm.
to a certain extent. They're not like a perfect lie detector the way Kirihime is, because she's got special servant powers that permit her to be. But they can't be lied to. I have not got the health to withstand a hit of any kind, and I have completely run out of cures.
It's just gonna throw AoEs at you.
Yeah, but I'm not going to be able to stand them.
I got a Phoenix down. I can get you. Can I use the resistance ones in combat? I think I actually can. Hang on.
It's like I stopped thinking about the cure that was on my bar because there's 50 charges of it, and then I realized that I had 0 out of 50.
Yeah, I ran out of rampages mid pull on the chocobo and had to find a spot to stop and refresh it. Put some cooldowns to reapply. Oh, he's got the chasers now. Yeah, if you fall over, I've got like 5 resistance Phoenix downs I'm carrying on me. I'll just go restock when I run out.
Right, yeah. So yeah, I'm still making glacial pace through that story. Not it's because it's not just that the story is a bit of a tough read at times because you've got to keep shifting perspective and remembering details and that sort of thing. But also the fights are rough. A lot of them are rough. Like even for a well-developed roster like mine, like without spending a lot of time to think about my compositions, which because I just don't have a lot of time to ponder over the compositions, the fights can be quite rough. I've managed to bulldoze my way through most of them. Usually, there's a couple of false starts, and I'll have to try a couple of times to get good enough RNG to push through with whatever random comp I've tossed together. And I'm relentlessly abusing the fact that the in-story support is really like the NPC support is really powerful, especially as the story wears on. Because Castoria is a part of your posse
Oh,
in
so
the in the
level,
Lost Belt,
we're not
and
at level 60 supports with NP1
quite the
or whatever.
reverse actually. She gets more powerful as the story goes along. So currently she's level 120 or something with 10 10 10 skills in NP5.
Yeah. Oh, this guy's super easy, so I'm gonna do one trick. You can take notes on this, people, if you are so inclined. Trick you can do with this particular fate. Such a joke. Gather up all these guys and kill them at the same time you do this.
But yeah, I don't think I've got much more to say about that yet. Still smarting from my brutalization by the gacha. And to my intense irritation, I got like 1 billion copies of Ushiwakamaru, but only got a grand total of 2 copies of Kiyohime, and I need lots of copies of Kiyohime in order to keep leveling her up. And she just wasn't coming out of the gacha. I pulled so many times, 330 pulls, and I got 2 copies of Kiyohime. Jimmy's set to rustled, so she's currently stuck at oh crap. She's currently stuck at level 116. I did not realize this. I thought that I had an unusual streak of good luck. But during the Melusine banner, while the Melusine banner was up and the anniversary event had just started, you know how it's got the rate up on super success and great success on leveling?
Mm-hmm.
For like the first 12 hours of the event, the chances of super and great success were apparently increased by 20 and 30 times, sort of thing, rather than 2 and 3 times.
So you were getting they were happening literally every single time you did it.
Yeah, I spent almost no embers and raised Melusine up to level 100. I was just absolutely lavish. I did the same thing with Koyanskaya. Got her to level 90 as well. Did not realize that was what was going on, but I decided not to look a gift horse in the mouth. But it turns out later that it was happening to everybody because they got the odds wrong.
I see.
Yeah. It was good. It was good. I was not really that lucky, but I felt lucky and it was nice.
They done goofed in your favor for once.
Yes, they did.
Yeah,
And
that's
of course they don't really do rollbacks. So
this is a thing that's always bugged me, specifically with the way FGO does its EXP, because it's still got that really old model of mobile games where you have to painstakingly grind out the EXP to a degree that you in the other mobile games, while the EXP may not be great that you get just passively and in your EXP tokens, they do give a lot more just for free at during random events and stuff. So if you get a new character, you can just kind of wait a few days and then level them up. You don't have to go out of your way to hand farm the way you do in
Yeah,
Fate.
but conversely, there's a flip side to that. And the flip side is that while FGO does force you to grind the crap out of things in order to level them up, you are never capped. Like, you don't run into that situation where you just can't play the game anymore in FGO unless you have abused the lotto something fierce. Like, for most people, they will have so many golden apples that they can play as much of the game as they want for as long as they want when they've got the time to do it. Like, if I wanted to, I could just farm up all of the materials I need, all of the QP I need, all of the XP embers that I need in order to level up everything.
Yeah,
The only thing stopping me is real world time.
yeah. That I still have a supply of gold apples, but I have not played every single event, and so
I
they
still have hundreds. I've got literally hundreds. I could sit down and just play for hours if I wanted to.
I've signed us up for the critical engagement up there. It's not side readable, but it's fairly easy. Just follow me, and maybe you'll pick up on kind of what's going on. I can.
Well, you'll need to use the Dorito then because I can't see you most of the time.
This thing dies fast. If you wanna blow it up, you can. Like a picked bloodsucker because I'm almost certainly gonna be the one tanking this.
Means?
Yep, just jump in there. If one pops, I'll just sign us up immediately, and we can just. So yeah,
Yeah. So I don't know what's coming down the pike for FGO because I haven't been paying attention to the layout. I've been sort of drowned in stuff to do right now since there's a ton of new strengthenings out and stuff. Hogeki Yoi got another strengthening, so now she's even more powerful as a farmer. With the addition of Koyansuke and Oberon, she's like she's approaching the tier of universal like Omnifarmers, except for Buster, because she's got a 50% battery and meshes really well with them due to the sheer number of crit stars that she craps out if she's using her Noble Phantasm all the time. So yeah. Anyway, that's FGO. Other gacha Blue Archive is currently having a Valentine's event. I'm not sure if it's a new one or if it's a rerun. I don't really know.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a 2-week one, so that's normally means it's a new one. But the story is like it feels very early.
Yeah, because
Because it
we're
involves
introduced. Yeah, we're introduced to a lot of these characters in the main story already.
yeah. It also sort of Wakamo is the first opponent that you face in the story during the very early prologue, and that's where she falls for Sensei immediately. And this is sort of like the follow up on that storyline. It doesn't really seem like much time has passed because your character still doesn't know who Wakamo is at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Right, I'm not sure what I'm doing here, so I'm just gonna
Just follow the Dorito. I'll try to remember everything it does. I'm not going to interrupt you to explain everything. We're just going to roll with it.
right. So it's got a bit of an unusual sort of structure in that you will spend a bunch of resources on one set of quests, which will then unlock another set of quests and so on. The most complicated thing about this event though is trying to figure out what the heck you should be spending your stamina on as far as clearing out the shop is concerned, because frankly it's a rough decision to make. What the heck is this? I don't remember this.
Oh, no.
Dorito keeps changing direction.
Dorito can't tell. Oh no, you're in trouble.
Dorito is functionally useless.
One of them goes slower than the other ones, so you got to follow that one. But I was looking at the wrong one. That's all it is. Just find the slow one, chase that one, let the other two explode, and then run away from the one. So, there you go. Now we run away from this one. Okay, you're good.
Yeesh.
Okay.
What the crap is going on?
He'll tether to two of them, and they will copy the move that he does once he's tethered. He's done two different moves. Those two are going to do cones, and those are going to do point blanks, all the way to the edge. And
Yeesh.
they're going to copy him. And that's it. That's all his mechanics.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah, because he showed you what they're going to do at the time.
He's foreshadowing the way we foreshadow, which is to do exactly what's going to happen.
Yep.
But
taking after old Octail and Hordak there. Get used to this guy. He's the first boss. He's part of the first boss in Dalradia. You just have to fight him again straight up there. You do him a lot, so stuff gets put on autopilot pretty quick.
But yeah, because the shop has a lot of relatively important stuff in it. That is to say, it has
Big takes.
a lot of those items that allows you to I don't know what there is a name for them, like a community name for the chooser items, but I don't remember what they are. But in addition to that, the whatchamacallit, the welfare is apparently extremely good for one of the raids because it has the extremely consistent CC without sacrificing a huge amount of damage for it. So it's always worth farming for that as well. But the thing is that it gets to a point, right, where farming shards is not very efficient because you have to be basically a super farmer in order to make progress. Like doing, you know, four PvP refreshes, 3 pyroxenes refreshes every day, sort of thing. Like actually farming someone up on an event is sort of like a high end player type of activity.
Yeah, realistically, if you want the character up, you're gonna have to go get some ligmas.
Who named them that?
I don't know, but ever since Abo started calling him that, I just thought it was the funniest thing in the world.
I don't know about in the world.
Well, funniest thing for the moment, certainly.
Man, I can't even get gold on these.
I didn't get gold on that one either because somebody already started it while we were or was ready to go on it as soon as we got out of the critical engagement. They knocked off a whole bunch of health before we could get progress made on it.
Yeah. Anyway, unfortunately, a whole bunch of like high value bonuses are overlapping with this event, but I'm probably gonna give the event priority on this one. But yeah, it's the Valentine's event, so it's basically the main reason to do it is for people who want the opportunity to get the special scene with their particular chosen waifus or whatever.
It's really easy to get to. Just get event points, which are you get quite high at a base rate because of the second half of the event where you got to go beat up Wakamo.
Unlike normal, where you have to scrape around for them. Yeah, so like the last event in particular, like I was really struggling to get points.
Yeah, this one has a follow up, by the way. The only one out here with a follow up, I think. Zone 3.
Right.
Oh, that's why we're not getting much rate. I turned my tank stance off for that critical engagement, so I wasn't generating any threat.
Why would you do this, Steel?
Because somebody else had a healer with him and was tanking it. There we go. Got gold that time.
So the whatchamacallit? The next piece of the story is coming shortly as well for Blue Archive, which is going to be sort of like the Arc 1 finale of sorts. Though what particular story threads that ties together, I'm not sure. Probably it's going to mainly tie together the first 3 parts of the story. the foreclosure task force, the Eden Treaty, and the Clockwork Pavane. Maybe not all of them. Maybe probably the gut feeling, of course, is that it's going to focus on Eden Treaty simply because Eden Treaty has got the most storytelling has happened so far. I barely even tagged that. I'm glad that you managed to put some thread on it.
There was a bunch of little mobs around it when it spawned, so I got to push the rampage button and hit all of them.
But are these green things the things you're supposed to avoid aggroing?
Oh yeah, they'll kick your butt. You got a star over its name or a 5? Yeah,
5.
Don't aggro that.
Bad things will happen.
Yeah, you'll get one shot. Is he gonna flush?
Me.
He's gonna flush everybody.
I was just running towards the fight. Is that so wrong?
Yes.
If you're approaching the fight, you can't get out of it. You're at the fat end of the cone. It should have been a line. It's not fair.
Yeah, it doesn't telegraph either. So if you're not moving when he flushes, honestly, you probably need sprint as well. You're just gonna get flushed.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how the story goes. I really have come to like the story in Blue Archive, the primary story, quite a bit. Oh my goodness, are you kidding?
See if somebody else will res you. We should have enough credit to get gold.
This is the worst engagement. My goodness.
It's the only one out here on a timer, not on rotation, so it'll be quite a while before it shows back up again.
Good riddance.
Somebody else pick you up.
Yeah.
F lumps up. Or the red mage. I guess the red mage. Yeah, the every fate in the zone except for the two we just did in that location, it goes on a rotation. They can get out of sync, and I'm not sure what causes them to desync, but that's why everybody runs back to the crater I have marked, so that they're far away from them if there's no fates up. So, and then they just follow the rotation around, and they go bop those two when they pop, and then they go back to the rotation and go in the crater.
Anyway, I presume you do the bounties every day, right?
Yeah.
I get grey every time. Just grey items. Grey.
What level are you doing them at?
60, I think. It's just grey.
I get some golds from.
I get a gold I get like 1 gold a day, maybe.
I get a few a week.
This is grey all the time. Like I've got this sort of like glorious line of purples on the drop list, and it's like, well, I saw one of those one time ever.
Yeah, it's the bounties are not just they
It's so cruel.
You really, to get any mileage out of those, it feels like they really want you to buy the, what's that thing they call it, the daily Perexine pass or whatever. Yep, here comes the crater train. They're gonna take that crater. Oh nope, they're coming to our crater. Our crater is superior.
No, looks like they can't make up their mind. They're bouncing between the two craters.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, it's a bit frustrating every time I get to see, because it sort of gets your hopes up, right? You go to select it and you see, oh, look at all these purples that it drops, and oh, it doesn't though, does it? It's just greys again.
You go in there and you're like, oh, my so and so could really finally upgrade today.
No, upgrading is a thing that happens to other people. I've made very little progress on actually raising my characters. That's where most of my difficulty with the game comes from. Is my characters just have really low stats.
Yeah, my equipment is quite bad, but I didn't
both my equipment and my skills are bad. There's no way that there's enough materials to actually upgrade multiple students.
But I have
not without extensive play.
Yeah, I've been focusing on a very select few students, and just their skills are really good, and everybody else is like a skill level 2.
I usually will pick just like one or two skills. Like the one that I really went ham on is Erohard as a support who just has a straight up your party has higher attack percentage skill.
Yeah,
And I've just sort of been going ham on that one because it doesn't matter where you put that, that's always going to be good.
yeah. I got Hibiki and her everything is as high as I can keep it. The other Millennium Girl in the wheelchair, I've got her skill that gives you the cost region up
Yeah,
as high as I
I
can.
have her, and it's not that I don't use her quite often, but I don't use her as often as I thought I might, simply because she requires so much micromanagement to maximize.
Yeah, and on a rampage
Because
again.
like, unlike most of the buffs are pretty lengthy, but her buffs last like 17 seconds or something. So you have to use them at a pertinent time, meaning you have to watch what's happening.
Yeah. I didn't see a whole lot of mileage out of her until I really started ranking that cost reduction skill up quite a bit.
Goodness.
I take the speed up. Well, at least she didn't get murdered by the meteors. Now let's hope I don't get murdered by what's his nuts. That dude was here farming, so he scaled the fate.
Why would he do this?
That paladin with the glowy shield that was out here solo earlier scaled the fate pretty hard.
Paladins can't be trusted.
Huh. Out here, there. I don't know why you would play paladin out here.
There's no meme way to use it.
No, they're not like Dark Knight that just has a whole bunch of miscellaneous tools for surviving out here. They're not like Warrior that has the crazy health regen. They and their damage is butt compared to everybody else. They're just if you're out here for gameplay reasons, there is no reason to pick Paladin. Like Dark Knight and Warrior are just better than it in every single way. Gotcha. That's why I play Dark Knight out here. Even Gunbreaker's better because they have a better damage output at that level.
Yeah, anyway, that's Blue Archive. Not much happening. Not sure what the next event is. It's at any rate the story's going to be the focus of the next thing. Unfortunately, they had a big loot drop to encourage people to read the story. But since I was up to date on it, I just collected a big bundle of stuff,
Yeah,
which was a godsend considering that I was in EXP hell at the time.
yeah. I was already scheduling out time to go abuse the commission rate up, and that drop happened, and I had just read the story to the point I was at, and I was like, oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, because I've got like 50% of my students are still at level 1, and I don't have any XP to feed them.
What account level are you? About
60, 61,
yeah.
something like that.
I missed a few days. Oh, somebody's doing this. Wait, spawn critical engagements. Fakes that make them happen. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I want to go through the rest of the Blue Archive story. I've just got another game that's eating my time right now, and get ready for the finale. So but yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what the rest of the story is like and see the finale. Do we have a date on when an actual hard date on when the?
I believe we do, but I don't recall offhand what it is, other than I remember looking at it and thinking like, oh, that's really soon. Let's see it. It should be on their Twitter, so we'll just take a quick look here. Nexon event. I find it hard to believe I'm playing a Nexon game, TBH.
Yeah, well, it's next on Korea, not next on America. I think somebody else is public.
21st.
Oh wow!
21st of the 7th.
So this week.
Oh, hold on. Is that I don't know if that's actually the thing or an announcement about the thing, because
Oh
it's like one
yeah.
of those really flash heavy websites that are really hard to navigate.
Oh, so you're not sure if it's an announcement of the date
Oh, hold
or
on, it's not Flash anymore, is it? I still think of it as being Flash, but it's not Flash
yeah, it's
anymore.
HTML5 or whatever, but it operates functionally like Flash as far as watching it and interacting with
In
it
other
goes.
words, slow and cumbersome.
Yeah. Man, remember back in the early 2000s when people used to have Flash UI elements on their website and would drive you absolutely bananas?
Because they would be broken on like 50% of
Yeah,
devices.
because they, and not even that, they just be broken in general.
Yeah.
You guys are bringing me dudes to kill, so I will kill them.
But I don't know if I'm actually reading this correctly or not.
It could be an announcement about an announcement that's coming.
Yeah, there are like several dates here. There's 21st of the 7th, 25th of the 7th, 22nd of the 8th, and 5th of the 9th, and all of these appear to be linked to major story events. So maybe there are 4 chapters and they're going to release them, in several parts. But it looks like the first story is going to focus on Rin. The second story is going to focus on Hoshino. Third one, not really clear. It mentions the name is Ark of Atrahasis Conquest, and they've mentioned the Ark of Atrahasis in the story before, but I can't remember where.
I think it's after the point I'm at because the name doesn't ring a bell for me.
It was quite recently in the story, but I can't remember in what context it was mentioned.
Heffalump. Or Heffalump.
I think it was something that the student council, the Millennium Student Council president was involved in. I don't remember the name. I know the concept, but I can't quite hook them up in my brain right now. And it looks like the last one is focused on Shiroko, maybe? I don't know. Hard to say. I never get credit for the Heffalump. The Heffalump just doesn't seem to have enough health.
Yeah, the Heffalump falls over like a sack of bricks.
But yeah, so big story event coming. Excited about that because I like the story. I expect that it'll be like regular events and radio silence for a bit after that, and then they'll pick up again with a new arc because there doesn't seem to be any word of the story slowing down in the East Asian versions. So
yeah.
yeah.
They'll probably give it a month or two and then reaching inside my drawer and the freaking fate spawns.
Yeah, but by contrast, FGO doesn't seem to have FGO had a big slowdown, like in terms of general content. Like they just reduced the content cadence as a whole. Not really sure on the precise motivations. No one really is, but they did. But the story has continued to keep trotting out. So yeah, they didn't really stop. Uh, it was like, oh, the end of Arc 2 is going to be sort of like the end of the broader story of FGO, and then we move on to something else. Oh, and here's chapter 2.5. So they're currently in Ordeal Call, which is the follow up to Cosmos and Lost Belt, and the sort of the driving theme for that chapter of FGO is, as I understand it, without allowing myself to be spoiled, basically everything has gone pear shaped because they were abusing the summoning system to constantly try and extract non-standard class servants, and basically they stretched the summoning system to breaking point and it caused something to go wrong.
I see. Are they done with Arc 2 now? Did they have the finale
Yeah,
and
Arc 2's
everything?
finished. Yeah, Arc 2's finished.
When they finished, I thought Lost Belt 7 just came out.
Lost Belt 7 was the last one.
Oh, okay. So there's no finale like Temple of Time.
Not as I understand it, no. Like that was the finale.
Oh, okay.
I mean, Epic of Remnant didn't have a finale chapter or anything either.
Yeah, but if Epic Remnant felt like an intermission.
But well, I mean, you've got exactly one example to use as precedent. One point is just a data point; it's not a trend. But yeah, that is the way it deployed anyway. As I understand it, that was the end of that arc. How completely they closed off the story, I don't know because I'm avoiding spoilers.
Okay.
So I don't know if it was like a hard ending or if it was like a beat. So yeah, they could go either way. I don't really know.
Going
But
as ham as I can, trying to get us credit.
yeah. So other things from the week. I spent a little bit more time playing playing the Final Fantasy VII remake, and it turns out that the so-called classic mode basically does nothing other than if you let go of the controller for a second, it won't stop playing. You will just go into auto attack mode instead. So it basically does nothing. Meaning that I just have to wrestle with the inconvenient and not really very fun action game that they have installed in place of the combat system,
Yeah.
and it's just sort of frustrating. Everything else is interesting. We're in a position where it feels a little bit like
Critical engagement.
it feels a little bit like a lot of other similar things in that the way the framing of certain things is set up seems to suggest something of the form. Did you already go there?
I registered us. Yeah, just hop into it.
Did you commence? So okay. I don't want to know that you registered us. You already told us you were going to do that. I want to know if you've gone there or not.
Yeah, you said that as I was pushing the button.
But it's set up in such a way that you will have seen before in other similar takes on older properties. Like Cloud kind of remembers all of this happening already, but doesn't realize that he does.
Yeah,
Because he keeps seeing things, the way they happened in the original game.
like just the feeling this should be different, but he doesn't know why it should be different. He just kind of
Well, it's not so much that this should be different, but he'll have a premonition of something that hasn't happened yet, and it's all like framed in exactly the way it would have happened in the original game, and then and things are different. Like when he meets Eris for the second time in the church, he has a vision of that infamous scene where the materia falls from her hair. And judging by the fact that Eris is still alive in the second half of the game, in the second half of the remake, clearly that scene doesn't come to pass like that. So obviously there's and from all that people say, I mean, there's not any evidence that Eris dies in the game as has been released so far. So clearly he's remembering something that hasn't happened yet, and there are, certain individuals kicking about who weren't there last time, and Cloud seems to perceive them as all the more unnatural for it. But yeah, so it looks like they're going down that road, which is sort of like I never actually watched how it comes to an. Oh, I can't remember how this one goes either. I never watched how it comes to an end, but I got a similar feeling from End of Evangelion, not End of Evangelion, the Evangelion remake. That this is a take on something that has happened before. Like this is not the first take of the story. This is like somehow they're managing to relitigate the events of Evangelion. What is going on?
just stuff.
What are we supposed to be fighting exactly?
The ads and the boss eventually. But ad fight for the big chunk of it.
Right. Okay.
You don't gotta think about this one too hard. Just do what they always say. But yeah, it's like it's taking place in an alternate timeline where the main timeline is still canon and still happened.
Yeah. That's the distinct impression I get from it. But I don't know where it's going yet. It's still being told like in a very conventional Final Fantasy story kind of way, like. But in that sense, it's like, oh well, this is something that is obviously for people who played the original and not for people who have never played FF7 before.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it doesn't really seem like a game that you should try and come in part way. It's almost like, oh well, the previous game is required reading for this one.
Yeah, when it comes to stories like that, it is it almost demands a level of that's higher than you just know what's going on. You gotta be really invested in the original property to be able to find the differences.
I have no idea what just happened.
There was a one hole that you could get knocked into. I'll get you up. Oh, that guy's got you. Don't worry about it. People will get you if you fall over.
I'm not concerned about not being got. I'm concerned about not having any idea what's going on.
That guy's dead. Yep, he fell over. I saw that tank get tethered, and he did nothing with it.
Well, I can't do anything about it.
But yeah, it almost seems like you need to be not just into the story, but be a genuine fan to get alternate timeline stories like that. So it
Yeah, well, because
really,
the story is told in the fine differences between the original and the new version of the story.
yeah.
Like that's what defines what the story is the very, very subtle differences. So yeah, it's gonna be a tough row to hoe for anybody who's not really boned up on the details. I have no idea how much stuff I missed because I played FF7 once and I didn't finish it
Yeah.
because frankly I lost momentum once the final dungeon with Sephiroth opened up, or at least what I presume was the final dungeon,
Hmm.
and I never even went there because there was so much other stuff to do, and I just sort of like ran out of steam having spent my energy on that.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Fair.
it's still an interesting game. It's just so horribly lumbered by the incredibly crappy combat system, and I've heard people give like really strident defenses of the combat system.
Well, this
So
is
maybe there's a layer of depth in there, and not by Final Fantasy fans either, by action game fans. So maybe there's a layer of detail in there that I just can't see. But for me, it just feels really clumsy. Like it's not like Devil May Cry where I know how to play it intellectually. I'm just bad at it. This feels like I'm being obstructed from playing the game a lot of the time.
also in Devil May Cry. You can feel good playing the game, even if you're not able to pull off the ridiculous combos that you want to. You can still usually weasel something out, and it still looks cool and feels good because it's built to be an action game and a good action game.
Yeah, it's the thing is that part of part of an action game is to excel within the boundaries that are given to you. To take this particular thing you do, which is, a set of moves that your character can do, and to use them in the best way that they can be used within very narrow constraints. Like this move does exactly this thing and only this type of thing. In JRPGs, the objective is usually to break the system. Like you are
Yeah,
looking for the combination of things that allows you to transcend the grind and become a god.
yeah,
And this game militates really hard against that type of play. Like,
yeah.
for instance, you get summoning materia really early on, but you can only use it when the game says so. Like, it's just not available 99.9% of the time.
That is unfortunately still better than 15, where Rama would just come blow up a bunch of giraffes.
Is that what happened? I don't even remember how 15
It was totally
worked.
random. They would just sometimes show up, uh, and blow up stuff. Like, oh, this big fight with all these enemies. Yeah, you don't need my help there. Oh, you're fighting some giraffes. Don't worry, Noctis, I got you.
I just factored out summons entirely and forgot about them. Like, my sincere opinion was that Gentiana was way hotter before she turned into an ice lady. But so I didn't think about summons at all in that game. But the summons in this game are like they can turn the battle in your favor, but you can't plan around them because you don't know if you're going to be allowed to use them or not. Because
Mm-hmm.
different summons are permitted in different battles, it seems, and I can't work out what the conditions are for any of them. If those conditions are remotely manipulable or anything, like I feel like I'm just being straitjacketed most of the time. It doesn't really feel very, very real to me.
Yeah, it's I've always had a problem with action games or RPGs bolting on action action game elements or trying to be an action game with bolted on RPG elements. Uh, I love action games to death. If you want to make an action game, set in a franchise that's traditionally JRPG, I'm even okay with that. But you can't do this weird halfway thing because the fun of an action game comes from being able to see a character do cool stuff and feel good about learning how to play it. Whereas a JRPG, you feel good by making the numbers go up.
Not
And
just making the numbers go up, though. It's about finding those combinations of numbers in certain ways that do really interesting, possibly unplanned for things.
yeah, that can be a huge part of it. And these two things are diametrically opposed to each other.
Like the thing is that they've stripped out even really innocuous stuff. Oh, silver again, really? Like for instance, you feel really kind of clever when you're 13 years old, and you work out that if you slot the fire materia and the all materia, it creates fire all, right? If they're in a linked materia slots,
Yeah.
like that seems when you're a little kid like a super clever game mechanic. You can't even do that in this one. There's no all materia as far as I've seen so far in the game, and I'm like 8 chapters in or something. There's just like the number of materia that matter when linked together seems trivial, and the only one that I've really gotten any mileage out of is one which just you slot element along with a magical elemental materia in a weapon, and it gives that weapon a tiny bit of bonus X element damage.
Yeah.
The element materia doesn't do anything on its own. That's the only support materia that seems to really do anything that I've really played around with so far. And it just like it seems like the idea of how you progress your character is pretty constrained and pretty rudimentary. Like I don't know how they managed to undo so many of the things that people liked about the original. It's like this is always the case with a remake, right? They'll take the original and they will completely misunderstand the subtle things that people liked about it.
Or just the ideas in general and why the game was put together the way it was. And how some of them things, if you want to radically change things like the entire genre of gameplay, some of them ain't going to transfer over as well.
Yeah, and they've I don't know how many games have put this in. I can't even remember if 15 had it since my memories of 15 are just a blurred mess. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I don't.
Um,
I had I reread a story synopsis one time after finishing the game, and I still forgot even that.
but the are we registered for this one?
I'm not doing on Serpent's Wings now. Don't do that one.
Okay. What is it? What? Oh, is that the one with the different colored?
Yeah, I don't feel like Chain Risen, and you're gonna get stuck trying to figure out what's going on. So we're just gonna skip that one, I think.
I used to be able to do that one, but the where was I? Right, yeah, the story. The 15 story is just a total blur to me. But now what was I? Where was I going with that? That was like part one of a two-part point, and I got distracted, and now I don't remember what I was saying. But yeah, it's I feel very frustrated by the entire experience. Like there is good to be found in there, but I'm not sure if it will hold up because it doesn't look like they've really understood what was good about Final Fantasy VII. Like I never felt it was one of my favorites, but I still enjoyed it. There were things that I liked about it. The Mysteria system made sense and was kind of fun and did interesting things. And this game feels like they're just trying to make me do what they want me to do.
Yeah.
I don't really feel like I've got a great deal of agency in a lot of ways.
You don't have to run out of this AoE, by the way. The dude interrupts it, even though the cast successfully completes. The NPC will stop it.
Well, I'm ranged, so it doesn't really matter if I run out. But but yeah, it's I don't really know how to feel about it because I want to keep playing it because it is a good take on the story, like in terms of like, oh, well, I get to see a more a deeper expression of who these characters were rather than the sort of like Saturday morning cartoon version that they were in the original. Because I know that a lot of people really talked up the depth of FF7's story, but I felt like it was pretty banal all told and wasn't really relatable in any meaningful way. But this one, there's a lot more depth to the characters in a lot of ways, and there are things that make more sense. And bits of the world that make more sense. Like you'd never really meet very many people in the original, and in this one, there's like there's actual civilians around. But yeah. So it's not like there aren't good things about it, and I do intend to keep playing. It's just that I just don't know why you would do that to the mechanics. Like it seems completely needless. It's not. So why did you think that this was necessary? Why did you think this was a value add? I don't grasp it. It
Yeah,
just doesn't make logical sense to me at all.
we'll have
But
a
yeah,
compare and contrast when we get to my week with a few of your points anyway.
yeah, I don't know. I feel vaguely like I'm being bullied by the game in some respects. So no, you do things my way. You don't have an opinion.
I ran out of rampage. Ran out of rampages again. Hang on.
But yeah, it's a frustrating game. I've managed to muscle my way through it so far, uh, simply just by bloody mindedly smashing my face against it, and it looks really cool. It's just it does. I don't really feel like a participant a lot of the time.
Oh, glad we didn't do on Serpent Swings. They cocked it up.
Mass graveyard. Okay, cool. Dodged a bullet, I guess.
I
Hold on. As an aside, I am at resistance rank 24 with an upgrade available. Am I going to keep racking up metal, or do I need to move on to another part of the structure?
uh I don't know if your metal's retroactive or not, so you might want to go uncap. I need to go restock anyway on. Yeah, just return. I need to go restock on rampages anyway.
Right. Anyway, how far in are we? Because my blade is nearly full.
Uh, we are an hour in. You've been going for a bit.
Right. Maybe we can take like a 1 minute break or something because I need to go to the bathroom badly.
All right. So, yeah,
You can practice putting your break in because we can do as many breaks as we want.
we can. All
Fern's
right.
not running away, so.
All right, folks. I'm gonna throw the logo up. There will still be no music because I'm not Fern. I'm gonna mute the audio, and we will return shortly. This takes a minute. And with that abrupt screen flash back to a bright screen, we are back.
Yes, we are.
So Vaul hit his maximum metal that he can get and ranked up to rank 25. And we realized that I'm not sure if metal earned after you hit max rank is retroactively stored and given to you or not.
Yeah, and it's just telling me that I'm earning 0 now. So I don't want to really continue with that because it would just be flushing it down the toilet.
Yeah. I mean, you still need the items there for the one-time grind, but we can get something we both need here anyway. Which, well, I need the flipping stuff for collectibles. The
Yeah.
what you call it's the bicolor gemstones. I forget what those stupid things are called all the time.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of an underutilized mechanic, really. But yeah. So anyway, we're going to mill around a little bit first because the next thing that I'm going to talk about is the random anime that I've watched. For the new season that has opened, and I just need to look at my other monitor for this, so I can't really play the game at the same time. So, in no particular order, what should I start? Where should I start? Let's just go down the list. In no particular order whatsoever. This is just as I spot them when I'm glancing at a list of anime. The overall theme is the same. The second verse same as the first. This is a stunningly mediocre, isekai laden season. Like, it's not the worst season I've seen, but to call it stunningly mediocre is probably gussying it up a bit more than it deserves. It's probably a bit lower than that. So first one on the list. Am I actually the strongest? This is like super generic isekai. Like, there's really nothing to comment on. It's like, oh well, this guy, he like dies and he like goes to another world and he like gets a special power and
Does he
yeah.
meet a big boobied goddess in the waiting room? Like how many tropes?
Yes.
How many tropes are we hitting here?
All of them? Like straight up all of them? Well, at any rate, to add a little bit more fine detail that is all, beats you've heard before. The guy is born into the royal family, and the royal family rejoices because he looks like he's appropriate. He's got the special mark that all the royals have that proves that they are like super awesome and stuff. And then he gets tossed out in the wilds because when they measure his magical level, it's like 2 out of 99 or something like that, which is like embarrassingly pathetic for a royal, and it would shame the royal family's honor if he was brought up as the prince. So they just toss him to the wilds, and one of the king's subordinates basically rescues him because his I think the story was his wife had just had a miscarriage or something, but he wanted a son, and he heard that like I don't know if the king was his brother or his uncle or something like that, but he'd heard about and he was of the privileged position to know that the royal family had thrown out an heir, so he decided to rescue him and raise him as his own regardless of what his magic level was. But it turns out, despite the fact nobody in the universe knows this, but the goddess that sent him down there reveals that the reason why her plans to give him a wonderful royal life have completely fallen apart is because they use an automated numerical system to gauge magic in that world, but it only goes up to 2 digits, and he's got a power level of 1002. So the 1 and the 0 are just overrun, and they never show up on any of the magical devices that they've got there. So it's like, this is the dumbest conceit possible, basically.
Okay. So
yeah, and so basically he goes around being superpowered under the veil of nobody knowing that he's superpowered and everybody thinking that he's weak.
So
but
all their scouters show his power level is 2, when actually it's over 9,000.
No, they all had the scouter upside down and thought his power level was 1006.
Right, yeah.
So yeah, it's an incredibly dumb conceit, and it continues to be incredibly dumb. And yeah, the only marginally out of the normal line thing is that by like the end of episode 1 or 2, the suspicion starts to arise that he might not actually be human, or he might be something else, because the power that he displays is completely out of line with his alleged magic level of 2, and they can't square the circle because nobody's ever thought of the idea of 3 digits before. So, which is also dumb. Like, everything about it is dumb. It's a dumb isekai doing dumb things all the dumb time. So, moving on. The next one on the list is Bleach 1000-Year Blood War. So it's the second half of that arc. And it's
cool.
Bleach doing its Bleach thing. It's nothing has escaped expectations. It's
Just more Bleach.
Yeah, lots of people who look like they were probably at some point fans of mid-century Germans.
Yeah, lots of people that enjoy stepping like a waterfowl.
They just happen to be fans of Austrian painters.
Yeah.
You know, the usual. Those guys. Yeah, they're there. They're doing their thing. They look like a bunch of retards, as expected. But, yeah. It's doing its thing. Nothing wrong with that. It's pretty standard. It's a shonen. What are you going to do? I'm a sort of... part of me hopes that there will be a revitalization of Bleach, because Bleach was my favorite of the big 3 of its day. I liked its visual stylings. I think swords are intrinsically cool. I mean, I liked it better than Naruto. I liked it better than One Piece. But in terms of production, like as a project, they screwed the pooch so many times. They just didn't know what they were doing. Kubo is someone who needed a more attentive editor than he had, to put it simply.
Yeah, somebody to go, okay, where are you going with this? Okay, you can't
Yeah.
just draw more cool characters. We need to do some with the ones you got.
Yeah, he needed some harsh truths dispensed on him by his editor in order to make that story tighter and more meaningful. Because there's material there, it's just used really clumsily because there's so much other noise, like white noise in the background.
Yeah, or we're stuck in Mexico for 1 billion years because he just keeps drawing more and more characters.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's how I feel like about Faye Britain right now. It's like we're still in Mexico. Great. Except it's Faye Britain. Anyway, next one on the list. My unique skill makes me OP even at level 1. Need I say more?
Could you pick a more generic isekai title?
Well, I mean, to be fair, I do respect honesty. It is exactly what it says on the box. So there's still things that you could do with this, but the only things in the one note gimmick way of another much more famous isekai that I'm going to mention a bit later when it finally crops up on the list. Basically the gist here is that he's reborn into another world, but all of his stats are complete garbaggio, and he thinks that that's just the way it is, but it turns out that there are stats for item drops in this setting. Like when you go into the dungeon, because there's always the dungeon, part of what rarity and amount of stuff you get is also an intrinsic part of your person. Like you could think of it as
a magic find stat.
He has a magic find stat that is through the roof. Well, it's not just magic find; it's like total loot amount. So whatever would drop in any given dungeon, he's going to get it all.
So it's
so the thing is that they immediately shoot whatever they could do with the story in the foot in the first episode. In that, the first thing that he ends up doing after the introduction is that he wanders into a dud dungeon to explore, because occasionally there are these dungeons that appear, they have monsters in, but nobody gets any good drops and they become abandoned. He just sort of wanders in there because there's nobody else in there, and he can tool around and stuff. And he immediately starts getting item drops that can raise your stats.
Oh, so he gets the droplets from the new Trails games that just perma boost his stats.
Yeah, so he basically gets perma boosts, and he gets them because nobody else has ever seen them before, because their rarity is ridiculously high, and he can get one every few mobs or so, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
because they're ultra rare, but not for him because he's special. Meaning that the only conceit that he has a very specific way in which he can exploit his skills is immediately begins to erode simply by the fact that he can boost his stats artificially, and so he will remain level 1, but he will have stats better than anybody else.
Yeah, he'll have 5,000 strength or whatever.
Yeah, at level 1. So everything is really dumb and bad. In the story. Also, it's sort of like the first like he of course runs into a girl first of all because obviously,
How
but
big are
she's
the
rather young.
honkers? Okay.
No, she's rather young. She's rather young,
Okay.
and hopefully this is going to go like daughter route or proper little sister route as opposed to little sister route with a capital R on route. Um, but yeah, it's bad. It's bad, but it's not bad in a different way to the way that all these other shows are bad. Like, it hasn't done anything offensive, it's just been bad in the conventional way, in that it's an isekai with a well-worn premise that doesn't do anything interesting.
Yeah, it just does the same thing worse that a zillion other shows have done already in the last 10 years.
Yep. Let's see. There's another Shadowverse anime, and I haven't watched it, and I don't intend to.
Don't get me started. I'll be here all night.
This next one on the list that I have. Reign of the Seven Spellblades. This is a Harry Potter clone story, and it is exactly the same as every other Harry Potter clone story, pretty much. Except there aren't houses so far that I've seen. Other than that, everything is like super Harry Potter.
The
Like
house
they've got,
thing's a British thing in general, right?
yeah, like I was in Sime House when I was at high school.
Yeah, not a thing in America. I think that's Britain and Commonwealth stuff.
Yeah, we had 4 houses, same colors, same layout, named after famous old boys of the school. So Heatherley House was red; they were all the boarding students. Um, Donnelly House was blue. Barrack House was green. Sime House was gold. But yeah, and the individuals involved were particularly famous people. Heatherley was one of like the most well-known and well-beloved teachers in the early history of the school. Donnelly was a famous cricket player, I think. Barrack was a famous Rhodes Scholar, electrochemist, and Syme was a world-famous classical scholar.
I see.
And in fact, I think Syme taught the Latin class that I went to in its original form. But yeah, at any rate, this doesn't have the houses conceit probably because it's a little bit alien, but it's in every respect it's just another weird Harry Potter clone thing. Main character has shown certain amount of OP, but not an outrageous amount of OP compared to everybody else.
Yeah.
Like, he seems pretty in line with the power curve so far. There's another character who really isn't, and she's the I would call her a Japanese exchange student character. She's the token samurai on campus and has, got crummy magic skills, but intrinsically is good at using magic as far as physical enhancement goes, because the fantasy world Japan that she's from is basically locked in war all the time, and she's like a battle scarred veteran who has already killed hundreds of people because everybody has to fight if they've got any capacity to fight whatsoever in that setting. They're sort of like stuck in the warring states period. So yeah, and I just can't get a grasp on this story. Like, it's motivated by I'm not even sure how to explain it. Like, what appears to be supposed to be the driving dramatic thrust of the story is this weird sort of teenaged angst version of battle PTSD or something. I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it. It's just really weird, and honestly doesn't seem really like worth watching. They've done a lot. They've put a lot of effort into certain things like various designs and artwork and like costume design and that. They've put a lot of effort in, but it's not like there's nothing to recommend there. It's so banal.
Is this this is a generic fantasy?
Super generic. It's not an isekai.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. I have to check now.
Okay, since you say isekai, we'll move on to the next one, the Great Cleric. This is another generic isekai. I was like, oh, he like dies. I think he gets truck cooned. This one, like actually truck cooned.
Oh goodness.
Um, and I can't remember exactly though because there's so many of them. No, actually, was this one a truck? No, this guy got shot. This guy got shot. He goes down in the exact same way as the guy at the start of Slime Diaries,
Oh,
slime thingy,
okay.
slime my reincarnation of slime. That's basically he ends up in the path of a gun wielding criminal who's trying to get away, and he ends up getting shot while he's being attempted to be subdued, even though
Ra-
he's just a passerby.
Random act of violence due to illegal activity going on in the area. I got it.
Yeah, so he's basically a salesman, and he basically uses his ability to secure sales to get by in the world by being persuasive and that sort of thing. Not in a bombastic Zero from Code Geass kind of way, but just sort of like a shady door-to-door salesman kind of way where they're just trying to coax you to buy. That's sort of like his approach to life. But he decides he wants to be a healer so that he can hang out in the back of parties. Um, and so he gets a whole bunch of talent with like fundamental affinities for healing and that sort of thing. Um, but of course, he's still a low level. He starts as a 15-year-old, and it's according to something they mentioned later. If you can manage to make it to level 5 by the time you turn 20, you're considered to be a pretty talented guy. So, and he's still at level 1, so he's aiming to try and gain a level every year if possible. But it turns out that that healers in this world, it's not so much that they aren't respected as they're generally considered to be money grubbers who hold other people's lives for ransom and don't really care about anything than money. And so basically the isekai story goes along the incredibly banal route of, oh well, so basically he's going to be the one altruistic healer in the setting who just wants to help people and make the world a better place by healing people and stuff.
I'm
And
not
it's
going to
just
lie. This sounds so generic and boring that I'm actually making a graphic for my segment when it comes up in the middle of you talking about this.
yeah, it is incredibly generic and boring. Like I'm already making it sound more exciting than it is. And of course, every female that he meets is incredibly gorgeous and interested in him,
Of course they are.
or sort of like casually, slightly interested in
They
him,
all went to
without being too overt.
the Reen school of swordsmanship and all acquired the Medic form of the Eight Leaves One Blade style.
I haven't seen any. I haven't seen any head patting yet. I feel like I did see some head patting actually in one of them yesterday. I just can't remember who patted whose head and why.
The meme has
Definitely,
ascended in reverie. Don't worry, we'll get to it.
definitely, the head patting took place anyway. Um, as an aside, there's actually a scene in Aru's Bond stories in Blue Archive where you help her out with a job and it goes really well, and she wants to reward you, and you have the option to ask her for a head pat.
That's incredibly lewd of you.
She objects as though what you suggested was incredibly lewd. Yes, the alternative is to demand a gold bar. But yeah. Anyway, that's incredibly banal, and there's not really anything else to say about it. Jujutsu Kaisen is having its second season, and the second season is a flashback season. So presumably it's about developing Gojo's character primarily. This is one of those things, sort of like Chainsaw Man, and that the only people that are really excited about it are people who already read the manga. So I don't really have much commentary to give on it. It's Jujutsu Kaisen. Like the Jujutsu Kaisen has a lot of fun, likable characters in it, but most of them have been sidelined now, and this one's just for the people who gush over Gojo, pretty much. Although I am a big fan of Utahime, I think she's cute.
Which one's
Even
she
if
again? I'm terrible with names.
she's one of the teachers, except that she's younger in this arc, and she's very, very earnest and talented in her own way, but constantly being outshone because her talent levels are normal talent levels, and everybody else is a freaking prodigy.
Yeah, then they did need to do something with Gojo because he just kind of was so OP that knowing nothing about him like we did for so long just it was one of the things that stuck with me as not sitting very good with the series.
Yeah, he's one of those characters who needs to have a history arc where he's dumped in the absolute ringer in order to justify his continued existence as a smug MFer in the present day. Whereas you can sort of see it on like where you see Utahime in the present day scenes, is like you can see that she's become a very different person compared to how she is in the past. Like she's got scars all over her face. She's very solemn,
Yeah,
although she still blows up at Gojo at the drop of a hat. But generally speaking, you can see that, you know, all of these adult characters have been in the wars, except Gojo, who just has this weird quirk where he wears a blindfold, and that's about it.
yeah, he's just stupid powerful and wears a blindfold. Like, how strong is he really? How did he get that way? And please tell me he had to go get put through the meat grinder to get that way, because him just being the omnipotent, all-powerful blindfold guy that all the girls swoon for in real life as well is a very boring character.
Yeah, well, that's where he's currently sitting still. I'm not really sure what they're going to do with it. Hopefully, it will come out as being in some way balanced off, if not justified. Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for there anyway. But yeah, next one is the most heretical last boss queen from villainous to savior. This is another isekai. It's of course it's a girl isekai, so the girl instead of becoming the hero becomes the already established villainess in a story.
Mm-hmm.
This story is identical to the story of my next life as a villainess, except that I loved my next life as a villainess because it's really funny. And this story is exactly the same, except there's no humor. Everything is played for drama. So it's incredibly overwrought and melodramatic version of what was incredibly funny. Like, I think that this would have been a mediocre isekai like all the rest if my next life as a villainess hadn't come out first. But because my next life as a villainess pokes fun at everything, this one just ends up being like that story, except it didn't get the joke.
Yeah, it didn't. We already have a story that acknowledges how ridiculous this concept is and had fun with it.
Yeah, like from the story is the story is always in these ones like, oh well, the female gets isekai'd in as the villainess in a otome game and basically sets about trying to not be as bad as the person she's replaced, so that she doesn't ruin the lives of her favorite characters and so on, and then they all gradually fall in love with her and so on. Whereas in my next life as a villainess, the only thing that the main character is doing is trying to avoid being killed or exiled. She is preparing to learn to farm because she's sure she's going to get exiled anyway, and basically acting like a doof the rest of the time. All of the male characters and the female characters fall in love with her. She doesn't realize it at all because she hasn't even thought about it, and they spend the entire plot squabbling with each other over how to get her attention in ludicrous ways because they've all fallen for her and she hasn't noticed. And she continues acting like a complete moron because she's prepared for this impending failure that is never going to manifest because she's already headed off everything without realizing it. So basically the story is driven by the fact that she is a complete retard. She's basically like she's sort of like a reverse Don Quixote because she's already conquered all of the opponents but hasn't realized it yet, so is constantly attempting to joust with giants.
I see.
But this one is just, it plays every trope completely straight. Everything is played completely straight, and she's an overwrought emotional mess all the time because of it. Also, she got truck-cooned.
Yeah. I mean, you could do something with that character type and personality. You could even maybe make it work in that setting, but that is a setup for a funny.
Yeah, it works really well as a comedy setting, and most of the otome game isekais that I've seen that were good are the comedy ones. The serious dramatic ones never work as well. And I think it's just because the premise is intrinsically kind of dorky because otome games are unrealistic. That's the point. They're supposed to be fantasies. So when you try and, put an actual person in that story instead of a canned Otome heroine, they just sort of don't make sense. So having an absurd character makes more sense than having a sort of like a supposedly realistic one. So
Hmm.
yeah, basically it's a misfire. It's like the misfired version of My Next Life as a Villainess, which I felt was like a simplistic but solid comedy that I enjoyed enough to purchase on Blu-ray.
Might
So
hear a
yeah.
slight echo, folks. I'm just checking the recording to make sure we're still good.
Let's go down the list. What other ones have I looked at so far? Oh, right. This is the famous one. Reborn as a vending machine, I now wander the dungeon. So this is the famous one about the guy who gets isekai and by getting crushed by a vending machine, basically, and he comes back as a vending machine with his ability to communicate is basically limited to like a couple of canned phrases that a vending machine can say. But he manages to strike up a sort of friendship with a local hunter girl in the dungeon, um, whose only real attribute is that she's incredibly strong. Like everybody seems to have something that they're uniquely good at in this particular isekai, and hers is that she's a meathead basically. But nobody's seen a vending machine before. Nobody knows what a vending machine is, and he basically becomes a hit because he can provide, cheap, pre-made, preheated food
Yeah,
and drink.
give you your cigarettes for $1.50.
He has not sold any cigarettes, and I doubt he will because you can't show that kind of thing on Japanese television. So, yeah, but it's a banal isekai, but it's one of the earlier ones, so I'm willing to give it a little bit of slack. And at least he's got some challenges to face, being that he is a vending machine and therefore has very limited ability to communicate and cannot move.
Yeah. I am
But it's
more sympathetic to the isekais where the protagonist shows up and the whole premise is they're in a they that well let me back that up where the protagonist shows up in a new world and they're not overpowered or they have to work to get over. They may eventually become overpowered, but they have to work for it. I'm more
well,
sympathetic to those, but because so many of these dang things feel like, oh, I'm a protagonist in another world, and I can just knock over the big boss with my dick because that was my
this
special
vending
gift.
machine, the vending machine, I would argue is overpowered because while it only sells normal vending machine stuff, it's like normal 21st century vending machine stuff in a sort of like fantasy medieval setting.
I see.
So, like, if you are in the medieval, if you're in a medieval setting, the ability to produce infinite cup noodle is actually really useful.
So how does he restock?
The restocking happens naturally, like automatically, but he's got to spend points to do it, and the only way he can spend points is by making sales. So wherever Meathead Girl decides to carry him, he's got to adjust his stock by spending points such a way as to be useful enough for people to want to buy it, so that he can, keep stock. Because he also has to power himself. He's powered by these points as well. If his points ever run down to zero, he'll die. And he does have other sort of super abilities, like he can project a magical barrier at heinous cost to his own points, but he can do it. He can do various things. There are various uh, upgrades that he can purchase for himself from his internal menu, but they're all things about vending machines. Like there's a scene where he has to help a bunch of people fend off a monster long enough for the cavalry to arrive, and he does this by dispensing a whole bunch of cola and mints and then furiously using his like three phrases very insistently in an attempt to explain to them what they're supposed to do with these two items.
What's that, Lassie? Put the mint in the Coca-Cola.
But yeah, so the problems are dumb, the solutions are dumber, and the whole premise is idiotic. But it's sort of hard not to watch out of morbid fascination for how they're going to continue to carry this absurd premise onwards.
This whole thing sounds like something somebody either wrote because they lost a bet somebody dared them to, or they just wanted to see what would happen because this is so dumb. There's no way this can work.
I think that I think that that's probably the last one, and the reason was that, like I said, this is an old story. Like this one was written at the time where every isekai was sought out online, when that was at its peak.
Yeah.
So it would have stood out back then simply by being the only one that's not like starring Kirito.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's enough of that. Next one is Bungo Stray Dogs Season 5. Nothing much to say about this, since Season 5 is a straight continuation of Season 4. And
Yeah.
it needed a straight continuation because Season 4 left off in the middle of everything without explaining anything. Nothing was resolved.
Yeah. This one's also you can bounce off Fern more for, because he's caught up or has at least watched more than I have. I've only watched the first season and forgot everything that happened because that was forever ago. Maybe I watched the second season. I don't remember.
I kind of like the setting because it feels kind of like weirdly real to me. Like it feels like it makes more sense than a lot of other seasons. I think it's a lot of shows, because I think that's just because the show's carried on for quite a while and it's populated its setting with multiple different groups with have different agendas and so on, in such a way that it feels like, oh well, these people are actually interacting in a logical structure.
It's had time to establish a setting with people in it.
Yeah. Next one is called Helk. It's just called Helk. This is a fantasy one. It's not an isekai, but it is a fantasy one after the manner of all the other modern fantasy isekai style ones, where everything seems to be framed in gaming terms. I'm not sure who the main character is. Whether the main character is the main character may be Helk, or the main character might be Vermilio. This is like your standard JRPG setting, right? So there's a demon lord, and there's the four heavenly kings under the demon lord, and then there's the hero, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the demon lord has been recently slain. Vermilio is a very, very short-tempered, short red-haired demon girl who, well, taller than Etna, shorter than normal, shorter than everybody else. But she's very bad tempered, but she's in charge of the tournament that they're using to try and select a new demon lord, so that they can, have a head of their empire to help to lead them to try and reclaim the land that they lost when the hero defeated the last demon lord. And so she's administering this tournament and losing her temper every 5 minutes because one of the entrants is a massive muscle-bound human called Helk. And he's just completely sweeping the competition because he's level 99 and the average level of the Demon Lord aspirants is level 45. And he's wrecking shop, and unfortunately for the bad-tempered Vermilio, he's incredibly popular with everybody in the audience and even with the other competitors. Like, people just love him. They think he's cool, he's entertaining, he's just a great guy in every respect. But and they don't know why he's here either, because he's a hero. Like, he's clearly hero class human being. Therefore, his job is to kill demon lords, because that's what hero class human beings do, right? They don't have a demon lord. He's applying to become the demon lord, and he keeps saying things about how much he hates the humans and thinks they're all scum. So they're trying to work out exactly what the heck he thinks he's doing here, and Vermilio sends out some spies and does investigations, tries to work out exactly what this guy's story is, and it turns out that this guy Helk is the brother of the hero who killed the last demon lord, and that he is in the demon world because he is wanted in human lands for fratricide. And in the process of this investigation, they didn't seem to be able to find any humans in human land. They're all gone, like Marie Celeste style. There's still like food and drink on the tables, but everybody's gone. So yeah, this is the dangling mystery. So And despite the fact that this is an incredibly banal fantasy JRPG setting, at least they've dangled enough mystery in the first episode to make you want to look at a second episode.
Yeah,
Like, that's about as close to a win as you're likely to get these days.
I mean, there's a place for generic fantasy stories. It's just I am sick to death of them being isekai with OP protagonist and RPG mechanics randomly thrown in this world because reasons.
Yeah, I don't know why they're obsessed with it. I guess it's just trend chasing. Well, I don't know what else it could really
Yeah,
be.
this goes almost beyond simple trend chasing. It feels like it is.
To creative bankruptcy.
Yeah, we have lasted on this train longer than the Moe Blob now. Like it won't stop.
Yeah. Anyway, next one is here we go again. This one is level 1 demon lord and 1 room hero.
I'm gonna start making another infographic.
So this is the same story as before. No, not exactly. It is a story we have seen before though. It is exactly the same story we've seen in other places. But this one is basically the hero defeats the demon lord in the sort of like the opening scene. The demon lord, like 10 years later or whatever, reincarnates as like this weird chibi midget creature thing, and is extremely enthusiastic about a rematch with the hero. His secretary tries to dissuade him from going after the hero, but he does anyway. And upon encountering the hero, finds that the hero has basically become a total bum. Like, he's a layabout who drinks during the day, just lies around his filthy apartment all day, and basically just does nothing but
Yeah,
booze and watch porn.
yeah, he's completed his career for life, so now he can retire and veg out.
Well, it wasn't necessarily that. I mean, that's the outcome. But what he says is the reality is that once he did his job, nobody wanted him around anymore, and with his residual celebrity, just made a bunch of incredibly bad life choices, like having affairs with people and whatnot.
Yeah,
Basically, abused his fame recklessly, not maliciously, but because he was basically a dumbass,
mm-hmm.
and his life completely ended up a shambles. But he's still got like the raw power that a hero has, but it's useless in modern society. So he basically, the demon lord is completely appalled by this because it kind of doesn't really reflect well on the demon lord if a total scumbag is the one who defeated him.
Yeah,
So he basically decides to make it his project to rehabilitate the hero so that he can have the
run back.
rematch that he craves.
He wants to run it back, but he needs to get the hero back up into shape first.
Yeah. Hero is not interested in this at all.
You could do something with this premise. It depends on how you execute it.
I think it's just going to end up being a sort of a sitcom. I don't think they're doing anything particularly dramatic with it. It's going to be like Demon Lord well-meaningly tries to put Hero back up on his feet. Hero basically obstructs proceedings every step of the way, and then eventually, I'm sure, will inevitably do something heroic to show that the hero is still deep down in there somewhere.
I mean, you can get away with a simple story like that. It's not going to be amazing, but it'll be. You could make something
The
watchable
thing
out
is,
of that.
it should not stand out, but it only does because everything else is awful.
The fact that you actually got me to perk up at this one and go, oh, it has the possibility to not be good, but not be terrible, should tell you a lot about our pickings.
At any rate, I think I'll leave it there for now. I think that's all the random ones that I've clicked through so far. This season, I don't know if I have enough gas in the tank to do any others. We'll have to wait and see. There aren't really lots that look particularly great, largely because like I pretty much automatically ignore any high school romance or high school club anime now. I don't even consider them. So that strikes off like a third of the roster, and then there's a bunch of sequels and that I ignore, and the inevitable new a new season of Yu-Gi-Oh, new season of Beyblade, and new season of Shadowverse that come out every single season. Oh, and Card Fight Vanguard, and
Yeah,
Pokemon, and any number of these other ones that come out every single season.
yeah, the forever runners, not the long runners, but the ones that are gonna be around until the franchise doesn't make money anymore.
I mean, there's also, I haven't watched it, of course, because I haven't watched any of the others, but there is a new season of The Devil as a Part Timer as well.
I watched season. Is there a third season?
I don't know how the structure works. All I know is that it popped up on the Bobs.
Yeah, I saw it pop up on Bob's several months ago with season two, um, and watched about half of it and liked what I saw of it. A bunch of it is very sugary sweet, with one particular new character with Mal and Amelia having to play parent to a little baby, and despite them vehemently telling everybody they're not together, they
The
they
the
have
Bobs lists it as season 4 on their key, but it's called season 2.
okay, yeah, because I think they're split like that for some weird reason. But yeah, it
I have a funny feeling it's something to do with the number of exclamation points or something.
yeah, it might be. But yeah, I remember enjoying it. I dropped it because I got busy, not because it was bad. But it was just more Devil as a part timer. It's not gonna knock your socks off.
Yeah, I haven't watched any of it though, but since pickings are so slim these days, I might eventually get round to it.
Yeah, it's fun. It has some good gags.
We could use some good gags because most of the gags these days are pretty limp.
Yeah,
Anyway,
these are
I'll
all
call
old
an end
gags
to
too
yeah.
because Devil as a part timer is an old uh, franchise at this point.
Well, if they're making a new season now, then they certainly must hold up.
Yeah,
Anyway, I'll call it into my week there because my throat's a little bit raw from talking.
yeah,
This is the problem with not having Fern. Every time we do a show with the two of us, I end up with a sore throat by the end of it.
yeah. I was just kind of letting you go because I didn't want to stop you in the middle of your anime thing, but we're at 2 hours now.
Yeah, but I'm done. So your week, you
All
can
right.
go farm fates now if you want.
Yeah, I did one while I was waiting on you. As long as that one got on it, we can do that one.
How much?
So
How many gemstones? I've only got 700. We're fine for a bit.
so my work week was erratic this week, but I did have several days to just go ham on the new Trails game. I had about 3 or 4 solid days just to go on it. So pretty good. And I managed to finish the entire main story. Now, that sounds like a ridiculous feat if you've played any Trails games, because Trails games are huge, right? Yeah, but this is like Sky the Third. The structure of this game is very, very different. Number one, you're going to places you've already been before, and remember, I replayed Cold Steel 3 and 4 ahead of time, so I double already knew exactly where I was going. They literally just reused the maps. And number two, you're not in as open a world in this game. This is a very much so more structured story because it's set as a epilogue and to the Crossbell and the Erebonia arcs. So it's wrapping up all the loose ends, giving all the character moments that really need resolving, fixing up a few shoes that came along, and is trying to tell a self-contained story in one game. So to facilitate this, the story is much more directed, and you're not just given a big map to go wander around like you are in most of the other Trails games that expands over time or and stuff like that. Instead, the way it's broken up is I didn't talk about much about its structure last week because I was just barely getting into it. But the way this one works, it is well, I say it is more similar. Oh, this is totally the stupid goat one.
The one where things do way more damage than they should.
Yeah. So yeah. It's the way this game is structured. You load up the game. Yeah, it's the goat one. See how bad this is. I'm level 90, so I'm not doing it. at level, so that should help. And I have gear now. Gear doesn't care. Yeah, gear makes up the difference, so it doesn't care.
And I'm not playing monk this time.
Yeah. So you load up the game and you do the prologue, and the prologue is set in Crossbell. So I'm going to put a. I can't really talk about the game without talking about some of the story. I will stop before the reveal of the identity of the third protagonist, because when you meet him in the game, he's got a mask on and his name is C. He calls himself C, like the letter C. And this is a reference to Cold Steel 1, where there was a character that had a hidden identity with a mask, calling themselves C, and was the leader of the Imperial Liberation Front, a group that of radical terrorists that opposed the Royalists and the Empire and wanted to murder Chancellor Osborne for being expansionists and growing Erebonia exponentially during his reign. That C is oh, there's a boss. I forget the goat one has a follow up because I always skip it. So C in that game is no longer available to be C, so it's obviously not him. It is very obviously a character. If you've just played the games and you remember what the idle animations for characters are like, you will know immediately who C is. But for the sake of going through the game and talking a little bit about it, I won't outright spoil who he is. I might accidentally do it because it's not that big of a reveal if you're playing these games back to back, but I'll try not to. So, you do the prologue, you go to Crossbell, and you help the SSS finish the post-war liberation of Crossbell from the war that happens at the end of Cold Steel 4. And Crossbell's currently having a mess, and there's Imperials still there that are still trying to keep it hostage and stop it from claiming independence. And Crossbell at this point is no longer trying to rush its way independence. They're just done with both Erebonia and Calvert completely. They want their independence. They petition the church to be of Arteria to recognize them as an independent state, and they want to govern themselves now because the two countries that are always at each other's throats trying to vie for control over the state has crossed a line when Erebonia annexes it for 2 years in the middle of the Cold Steel franchise, and the people are just done with it. They don't want to be under the thumb of these two powers anymore. So you join the SSS and Lloyd and crew, and Yuna's there too from the Cold Steel, from the Erebonia side, and they successfully kick the Imperials out and get control of Crossbell back. And then it cuts to a month later, and it's still in the prologue. And in the month that follows, at the signing ceremony, you see Rufus, one of the original members of Class 7's older brother, just stroll on up to the podium and voice his objections to independence, and just kick the crap out of everybody that's there and summon a whole army filled with very high-tech weaponry to stop the independence signing ceremony from happening and resubjugate Crossbell right when they were about to officially become their own state. And he kicks the butts of the SSS on the way up there. Now, this should be impossible because Rufus at the end of Cold Steel 4 isn't available, we'll say, to keep dodging spoilers, to show up and do this. So you do not know what the heck is going on here. And so from this point on, after the SSS gets their butts kicked, they all have to run around. They get split up, and shenanigans start happening all over the continent. And you can pick. The game will then go to a menu called Trails to Walk, is what they translated as. I forget what it's originally called. Where you pick one of 3 routes. You can pick Reen's route, which it takes place in Erebonia for the most part, and eventually we'll get to Crossbell at the finale.
Grand Head Pat Fiesta.
Yeah. You can pick Lloyd's route and continue to follow the events in Crossbell directly, and and learn what's going on there. Or you can pick C's route, which is mostly the surrounding areas of Crossbell, but also you briefly go into the city for a little bit. For
So is this you pick this route and you follow it all the way through, or is it this
no,
you pick this route and you hit a story point at which you've got to go and then do the others?
you will get to a part where the game says, okay, in order to continue, you need to go play the other route up to a stopping point as well. So you have to go through each route to a point, and you'll get to a stopping point, and it will tell you go play the other routes. And there are some points where if you're a stopping point with two of the routes that are in sync with each other, it will automatically flip flop back and forth. Like there's one part in the game that in the very late parts of chapter 1 where if you have progressed both Reen and C's route to a certain point in the capital city of Heimdall, then you'll get to a point where Reen's team is trying to corner C's team and ask them very poignant questions about what the heck's going on and why y'all causing so much trouble. And you do the first battle of this part of the finale of this chapter as Reen's team, and then and you beat up on C's team. No. You start with C's team, and you start with C's team beating up on select members from Reen's team. And then the game will automatically, after that battle, it'll be a cutscene that plays, and C's team will go, okay, now that we're warmed up, let's give it our go for real, and it'll cut back to another battle. But this time you're controlling Reen's team in round 2, and you're not allowed to pick the characters that the game automatically selected for the first part of the battle for Reen's team, because they're all tired out now. And then after that, you go through a section in the canals where they're going back and forth with each other. And then you get to the end, and you have to fight Reen's team again as C's team, but it's a different group of characters from the other one. So you get to go through Reen's whole massive roster of characters and fight them all at the end of chapter 1 as C's team. And you get to fight C's team as a Reen team of your choice, for the most part. So it'll integrate the routes in that way until you get to the end of a chapter. And then you've got to have all 3 finished before it'll let you progress onwards. So the game is broken up into 4 chapters plus the finale. The finale is all routes come together at the end on in Crossbell and on the outskirts of Crossbell. So that's the way it's set up. Now, you may think, this sounds really odd. How do they handle things like inventory for each group? And how do they handle managing the characters? Well, the answer is, for pretty much all of Chapter 1, you are effectively playing 3 different games, because all their inventories are separate. And all their notebooks are separate. So all the information you collect, all the enemy scans you get, all that crap is locked to the route you got it on for the first chapter. But at the end of the first chapter, or early in the second chapter, or near the end of the first chapter for each character, you will have the characters the protagonists of each route will reach into their pocket and go, oh, that's odd. I don't remember having anything in my pocket. And they'll whip out a mirror. And the mirror will teleport them to the True Reverie Corridor, which is a continuation of the original Reverie Corridor from the Cold Steel 1 and 2. So this place is where they all meet up, but when they show up in there, they have all kinds of plot conceits for why this can't interfere with the main story. The big one being they don't remember anything that happens in there, but they get to keep all the power they gained while inside the True Reverie Corridor. So they go in there, and they have a pocket hyperbolic time chamber where they can go train, basically. And you can collect loot from the True Reverie Corridor. And this thing is entirely optional. You do not have to do any of this to progress the main story. And I did quick zoomy run-throughs of each stratum. It's broken up into stratums of different level tiers. So it's got level ranges of about 5 to 10 levels within a single stratum, and you only need to do 3.5 of them. Or only 3.5 of them are available during the main game. And they're not that long, because you're meant to rerun them multiple times to farm. I did not do this on my story run through, which I was doing this week. I instead just did the one run to get completion to see the cutscenes and unlock all the side stories, which you only need to do like one, maybe 1.5 runs to do. And yeah, that's how that goes. So once your characters meet up in the True Reverie corridor, though, your notebooks will merge and your inventories will merge, and you now have access to one global unified inventory. And the story idea is that whenever they need something, the story just assumes they passed it along in the True Reverie corridor. This never happens in the plot, but this is the conceit they make for stuff like why suddenly you have access to Reen's quartz on Lloyd. But it never happens with any major plot items. In fact, most of the Reverie corridor stuff is not acknowledged at all because they don't keep their memories when they leave either. They lose them when they're going in and when they come out. They just know, oh, we're doing something, but I don't remember what it was. And now we're here in this weird place that we need to explore. So, and this whole place functions as the where the majority of random encounters and raw Trails gameplay would be in any other structured Trails game, because this game is very much in its story mode focused on telling its story to wrap up this arc. And the main story is fairly good. It answers a couple major questions and relies on you having played Trails to Azure to understand what the heck is going on, because something happens in Trails to Azure that causes an alternate timeline to be born. And very oddly, in Cold Steel 4, when you beat the game, there is a bad ending that you must see. The game will not let you get the true ending right away. It will it'll stop you. It just won't give you the option to view it. You'll see the bad ending no matter what you do. And then after the bad ending happens, the game will cut, and if you meet the requirements for the true ending, which aren't very hard, it's do all the side quests, which are all very clearly marked on the map. It will it'll pop up and say, okay, you've seen the bad ending now, so if you want, you can just go back to the start of the bad ending cutscene, and we'll just go right on into the good ending, and you can go fight the real final boss. So the Reverie continues from the good ending, but how can I phrase this? The bad ending still happened. It just is in another timeline that was created because of events that happened in Trails to Azure and Trails to Zero. So basically, this acts as a vehicle to have Reen go, oh, well, he gets to see himself if he didn't learn to trust his friends and he was still a crazy self-sacrificing over virtuous nut. Yeah, when he goes full Shiro Emiya and he's willing to sacrifice himself no matter what, and you get to actually see him go, nah, I'm not gonna kill myself at the end of this game because that won't actually solve anything. What I really want is my friends to be happy. Like that will literally just make them sad and be the opposite of my goal. And you also get to see a version of Reen that hasn't figured that lesson out yet, which is the impression you get from most of Cold Steel. He seems to never figure that lesson out, but they finally get him to hammer it in that he got it through his thick skull at the very end of the saga, which was nice.
He learned the true meaning of head pats.
Yeah. So, funny enough, I don't want to talk much more about the main story because it's fairly good and brings back a whole lot of characters and does a real good job wrapping up, especially Crossbell, but to a lesser degree, Erebonia. Erebonia actually gets more wrap up in the side stories I'll talk about in a minute. These are, I'm going to consider more free to spoil because you're A, more likely to forget them by the time you actually get to the game, and B, are not as impactful on the overall narrative. But the rest of the game is the True Reverie Corridor. So this place is a randomized dungeon with each of those stratums that have a level bracket of about 10 levels, and there are 8 of them. They go all the way up to level 200. and you can then append modifiers to the game's difficulty if you just really want to keep playing after that point. To take it all the way up to level 300, you can just tack on 50 or 100 levels to all enemies in the game whenever you want after you beat the game. And after you beat the game, it'll kick you into the True Reverie corridor and let you continue down the stratums as a actual post game, which is a first for any Trails game. No other Trails game has a post game. And there's a story going on here, but I haven't beat it yet because I chewed my way to the last boss once, and a big notification popped up that said, "Okay, you're going to be using literally everybody in the next fight, so I hope you leveled up the entire roster to around 190 instead of just like the one team I was powering my way through with." So I'm be stuck on the grind for a while before I can see the end of this story. But it has its own post game story that I'm not sure where it's going or how important it is yet. But it doesn't appear to be very important. It just appears to be more backstory information. So if you just want to go through the main story of the games, I don't think it will be necessary. But if you're a fan of the world like I am, it's been interesting to see where they're going with it, and it clarifies a lot of stuff about how a certain character in Azure's power actually worked, and clears up the origins of a few things. But other than that, it isn't strictly necessary. The real highlight of the True Reverie corridor is as you progress through it, you unlock side stories, and these are exactly like the Star Doors in Trails in the Sky the Third. If you once you've played that, you'll know what that is. Which are literally just interactable objects in the world that once unlocked, you can go view side stories at, depending on who the side story is for. And these are a lot of fun, all of them. So far, well, there's been a couple that I didn't care much for, but they still had moments at least. So hang on, I got a list around here somewhere. Hopefully I don't die while I'm tabbed into it. Right, so hopefully you don't hear me clicking too much either. So the first one involves the new character. Oh right, the other characters that need talking about. Swin and Nadia from C's Root are 3 and 9 is not just heavily recommended reading. You must read that novel if you intend to get everything out of this game. Those two characters' entire backstory is in that novel, and all the events that happen surrounding them in this game rely on knowledge of that book. So if you have not read it, you're going to be lost and not know what the heck's going on with those two. But it is a very good set of characters they got there. I think they're very interesting. They're former assassins that break away from their assassin organization after they become attached to each other by killing their boss and running away. Because you can't just leave the organization they're a part of. That they would hunt them down and kill them. So they have to murder their boss before he can go report what's going on. And the book's all about how they pull that off and how their powers work and stuff like that. So you absolutely have to go read that novel. Otherwise, all the references, even one of the key boss fights that happens 2.5 times in the game, has no impact for you if you have not read the 3 and 9 novel. So you've got to read that. It is not optional like some people say. They are just flat wrong. It is required reading. But it is technically in-game, and that it is one of the in-game novel books that you collect over the course of the entirety. I think Cold Steel 3 is where it's at. So I'll give it a slightly more lenient pass than I normally would for extra reading. Because it is technically still in-game, just those books are presented as optional normally. But that one's not. You have to read it. So yeah, where was I going with True Reverie corridor stuff? Right. So the first one is just a side story about how they operate to flesh out their characters a bit more. The next one is literally just a day in the lives of the SSS after all the events that happen in Erebonia, and seeing what they do. Obviously relies on playing the crossbow games. Let's see. The next one was pretty good. There's one of the main characters of the Cold Steel 3 and 4 is part of Reen's class after Reen becomes a teacher. and it's Mueller's little brother. And his name's Kurt. And Kurt is a pretty boy, but has a smaller frame than most of the Vanders, so he has to use a dual-bladed sword style, and that's faster instead of the big, heavy sword that most of the Vanders use, that Mueller uses. So he looks very, very Bishonen. Is a very pretty boy. So this whole side story is about the class while Reen is away, of course. Gets word that an artifact is out of control at Saint Estria's girls' school in the capital, and they need to go investigate. But Kurt can't go help because Kurt can't go into the girls' school. Shenanigans ensue.
But isn't cross dressing a fine tradition of the Trail series?
It's only happened twice. I mean, that's still twice, but he gets the Joshua treatment. So this is all spun up by the resident mischief maker, Muse of the class, that gets a wonderful idea, and this wonderful idea has the side effect of a bunch of girls at the school suddenly realizing that they might be attracted to girls whenever Kurt walks by, and they don't know why.
I see.
And they are so happy when they figure out he's actually a guy, or they're very confused in the case of the primary girl. So shenanigans ensue. They find the artifact and save the day, but it's a cute side story and is entirely driven by its character interactions and making Kurt a punching bag. So you get a. I'm not going to go over all of them, but they're all fun. There's one where you follow the Bright family as they take a trip to Reen's hometown to go have a vacation and go snowboarding and go to the hot springs there and have snowball fights. And it's just a cute story, and you get to watch Gilbert get punted across the stratosphere by Cassius. And they're all pretty lighthearted or fairly simple, except for a few of them. One of them that I got to today in the last stratum was Reen gets a call from the Emperor of Erebonia. He's like, "Oh, hey, I wanted to give you something," and he gives Reen a picture of Osborne, and is like, "Here, you had a relatively close connection with Osborne. You should probably have this now that he's gone, and you should go just keep it." And they talk about Osborne for a little bit, and the bad feels monster that got blamed for everything in Cold Steel 4. And then Reen puts the photo on his dresser, and he goes to bed. And then excerpts from Osborne's diary start playing, and with new screen caps and screenshots that explain what the deal is with all the people that were connected to Osborne and Osborne himself, and how it wasn't actually the Big Feels monster after all. Osborne chose to do all the crap he did from the 100-Day War in Liberal onward of his own free will. I pasted this because it was so explicit that this, and it's just a straight up retcon. They just rewrote this because they realized the Bad Feels monster was dumb. I can only assume.
Is this less dumb?
It is much less dumb. I am okay with this retcon. It goes, I write these words in my diary to show that I have chosen my path and that my will is still my own.
It's awfully explicit.
Like, they make it clear in no uncertain terms that Osborne did everything he did because he thought it was the right thing and was working towards a greater good, and it just had horrible methods attached to it, like most bad guys. He didn't need the Bad Feels monster to make him evil. And you could take that interpretation from Cold Steel 4, but the fact of the matter is the Bad Feels monster is there, and he is directly drawing power from it. And this thing has been shown to brainwash people before. But making the main antagonist of the Erebonia arc do things under his own power adds a whole lot more weight back to the story that I felt was just kind of shot in the foot at the end of Cold Steel 4. I did not like the Bad Feels monster.
Have they ever addressed this directly as being, oh, this is definitely the original interpretation and now we're changing it?
I haven't seen anything from Kondo about it, uh, but Western Trails fans, when it comes to Osborne, are not the most reliable people. They either really love him or really hate him, and so you usually just get people snipping with each other instead of any actual discussion about the character. But this goes a long way to fixing that lingering problem of Cold Steel 4. Well, the Cold Steel franchise in general, because Osborne not doing the crap he did under his own power is kind of a big deal. Because you built him up as a character that acts a certain way all these games, and then like, oh, the Bad Feels monster made him do it. So now,
Oh, so we don't actually know this character at all. We just know the Bad Feels monster.
yeah, but no. Well, the Bad Feels monster did back him into a corner. He still chose to do things the way he did them, and it was still 100% his decision to do it. And he writes in the diary, "I wish I could think of another way to get around this, but I just can't. And so I'm gonna have to do all these terrible things to stop the Bad Feels monster and to save Erebonia. But and you know, he goes on and on in his diary, and it basically just fixes his. It's like a fic that's canon in story to correct his character.
I see.
So I'm fine with this retcon. It puts things back okay for the Cold Steel arc and adds a whole lot more retrospective weight that got in the intervening years deflated from the arc in general. So I'm glad the retcon is there. When they said that they would address this problem, I was thinking, maybe they acknowledge it. Maybe they try to explain the Bad Feels monster a little better. I wasn't expecting a full retcon. And such an explicit one at that. But there you go. There's also plenty of setup for the Calvert arc and Kurono Kiseki. Swin and Nadia, the girls you need, or not the girls, the guy and the girl you need to read the novel for, are going to be big characters there. Apparently, uh, they've shown up in Kuro 2. So this game is setting them up as characters, so you have them already established and don't need to reintroduce them, or don't need to reintroduce them as hard as you would if they were fresh characters. So this is very much so following in the footsteps of Sky the Third as well. Sky the Third did the same thing for the Erebonia arc. It teased us with Osborne's personality and why he's going to be a big threat, and showed us the inner workings of the Empire a little bit before we got there. Same thing with Calvard. We get to meet the president of Calvard, who is not as nice as the last president, who was already pretty sketchy. So we'll have to see where they go with all this, but it's all been set up and foreshadowed. So it's clear Kondo knows in the general direction he wants to go, at least while he's writing the Kuro games. Hopefully he doesn't fall prey to scope creep like he did with Cold Steel 3 and 4, where the game got so expansive. Cold Steel 3 was supposed to be the finale, but he just kept making the game bigger and bigger, and it got a little out of hand, and they had to split the game in two. So yeah, there's those. The other thing of note, because you spend so much time just messing with the characters in this game, they have done a whole lot of UI improvements to make managing your characters easier, including a proper party list instead of you just scroll through them all in the options menu. I'll post a picture. It involves the infographic in just a second. I gotta add a image to.
Just gonna duck to another zone while we're on a break here and
Yeah,
dump some bicolor gemstones.
yeah. I am got the thing up here. Okay, so I will load this on the screen for you. So while Vaul was talking about one of the boring isekais I already forgot the name of. I made this little graphic here that has the spoiler characters plastered over, so that you don't get spoiled. I'll dump it in live show chat as well. And you will notice uh, there are a lot of characters that wind up in your party in the True Reverie corridor in this game. Let's see here. Let me dump it in live show chat as well, just so my point can get across. Yeah. So there are. Let's see here. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 characters per line. 8 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plus 3. 6 times 8 is 48. I'm not crazy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 51. So there are 51 characters in this game.
Seems like a bit much, TBH.
Yeah. Now, thankfully, you do not get EXP for the characters that you don't have in your party as you're progressing through the corridor. However, as you progress through the randomly generated dungeon of True Reverie corridor, you will accrue the equivalent of embers or the little tech notes or whatever they're called from mobile games as EXP droplets that you can just force feed your characters that you're not using to keep them leveled up with the rest of the party. So it's a bit of a clunky workaround, but it works. The new interface they have works pretty good for making sure all the characters' quartz stays up to date. If you just want a character to have raw attack or damage, physical or magical attack quartz, just to have them have something usable, it's mostly fine. But for some godforsaken reason, it loves to dump the defense, like it's just HP and defense quartz on random characters. So I just vendored all of mine to get rid of it, because I did not want that quartz getting dumped on people anymore when I did the auto quartz, because that's 51 characters you would have to set up accessories for and quartz for, and manage the quartz of every time you get an upgrade, unless you use the auto feature. So the auto feature is practically mandatory, unless you really want to play micromanaging, which some people love to do in these games.
They couldn't at least have auto with rules.
No, it's very generic auto. It's pretty good, and if you get most of the really powerful quartz are rare enough that you'll only have them on one or two characters anyway. At least at the point I'm at, unless you really go ham in that corridor. So you'll know which characters you want those on ahead of time. So it's not as bad as it could be. It is still a lot of management and a lot of menu time. Like I've probably put a solid 2 hours at least in just menu time in that corridor. Just this week. It is a lot of faffing around and making your characters optimize. And I enjoy it to a degree. I like optimizing and breaking characters in JRPGs. And this game is very much so. The reason it has a post game is because this is the last game where this combat system is going to be used. It gets a radical overhaul and gets it doesn't go full action combat. It has like a pseudo action phase you can open most fights with while you're exploring, and use that to quickly bust down low level enemies. Or and you can do it, but you can push a button after you've done enough damage to just transition it directly into the a new turn-based system, because the delay system they use has been stretched to its limit and then some by the time of Trails into Reverie. So this game's post game is all about just, okay, go crazy with all the tools the from at least the Cold Steel games on have had, period, and just bust the game as much as you want to with whatever characters you want, and then some. So I have these sorted by level right now, but so let's see. There is the entire Crossbell contingent of main characters, I think without exception except for Dudley. Dudley doesn't get to come in, but he'd just be a clone of Machias anyway. The entirety of the Erebonian characters, several random Ouroboros characters. So one of the Anguises and one of the several of the enforcers actually, are just hanging around with you in the True Reverie corridor because this place does not seem to care very much about how feasible something is. It just is there to facilitate gameplay for the most part. Of the Liberal crew, we have Estelle, Joshua, Tita, Agate. Tobal was in the books. He was in Carnelia, but he's a book character that you don't need to read Carnelia, but he's in there, and you can learn his backstory there. He makes token appearances throughout the Arabonia games, but he's a Liberal character technically. Who else from the Liberal contingent? Because this is a little out of whack.
No analysts.
No.
Corey.
No, they're not game
What
playable, but Chloe
Sieg.
Sieg is there, but he's not Chloe's not playable, but she is there. She's you remember at Genis Royal Academy how they have all the flashbacks of the time Chloe was going to school there?
Yeah.
You remember the student council president that was always asleep on the roof that the secretary had to go drag down to get him to do actual work?
Vaguely, yeah.
He is a major character in both Crossbell and Arabonia, that student council president. And so he is tied to Arabonia. And so you get to see a whole lot of Chloe trying to get Lecter to behave throughout the Cold Steel games, but they do not make Chloe playable again in the Cold Steel games, unfortunately.
But who will be my healer?
You've got your pickings. Although the combat is there are so many fun and varied ways that you can bust this combat system. I don't have a healer in my current party. I rely on what they call brave orders that you can execute by building a certain resource through convoluted means. They're normally fairly difficult to accrue, but I use Lloyd to just poop them out. And these don't eat a turn, last for several turns, and have an instant effect applied to them as well. So if I need healing, I just pop one that restores some health, and then have Lloyd spam Burning Heart over and over again to get me more resources for him. So the game is 100% bustable. You can literally break this game with the break mechanic. You can break it with the delay mechanic, because Gaius has absolute delay. He is the only character in the entire series to have absolute delay on anything. It's only on his S-Craft, but you can make the boss literally never get a turn through one of those two ways. You can make yourself literally unkillable with brave orders like White Decoration, where it has a reduced damage taken by 90% on it that lasts for 5 turns. So this giant roster is just to facilitate breaking the game and having fun with the mechanics one more time and giving you the whole toolbox to play with. And I do enjoy the combat and where it's got to, but it is also very clear to anybody that has played these games, there's nowhere else they can go with this. They have hit the point that that the SMT franchise is at with the press turn system, where they just can't take it anywhere else. That they're out of places to go. Without radically changing the system or going to a new system entirely, there is no way for them to spice this up. So without it just getting bloated and ridiculous, so they're just scrapping the whole thing after Reverie, and we get a brand new combat system. Still turn-based for the most part.
Character still sounds pretty bloated and ridiculous.
Which one sounds bloated and ridiculous?
51 characters or whatever it was. Still sounds pretty bloated and ridiculous.
Oh yeah, it is definitely bloated and ridiculous. But it's meant to be a toy box to just play with whatever you want. So yeah. So the post-game grind is a little grindy to get to the super boss at the end and see whatever story they're telling there. But that's to be expected for a post-game anything.
Do you ever get Cassius to join your party?
No, he has only ever been fought once, and it was in Sky the Third. He has no ads, it's just him, and he is the hardest boss in the game.
I guess if he could join your party, the game would just be over.
Yeah, if he uses Phoenix Wave, if you don't have immunity up, you die. Period. End. Unless you're radically overleveled or you hack the game to get enough experience to get a high enough level, it just kills you. There's no way to survive his S-craft. You have to invuln through it. Maybe you could stack HP and defense quartz and eat the hit on one character that has an ornament set up that allows for that. Good luck. You go attempt it and let me know how that turns out for you. So no. But watching Cassius go on vacation with his kids and hunt, finally get to take his turn hunting the Jaeger member with Ouroboros, Gilbert, the joke one. He gets to take his turn, making him go Team Rocket is blasting off again. That's fun. That happens in the side story with them. But you do get you get a few characters that are fun. Shara is there as a support character. You can only use her Brave Order, the mechanic I talked about before. And so she's not playable, but she's there. There are story reasons she can't fight that I'm not going to spoil because that's a major spoiler. But she is present, and then Olivier's there, and he sadly doesn't have the machine gun loot anymore. He just he carries a pistol now and uses a proper gun instead of shooting his loot like a gun for his S-craft. But his new S-craft is pretty cool. It does look really good. And yeah, there's a whole bunch of other ones, but they're all spoiler characters if I talk too much about them. So yeah, as you can see, giant, massive list of characters.
You get Mueller?
No, you get to play as Mueller in second chapter, very late in the game, and in third chapter. But Kurt is basically Mueller, except at least gameplay wise, except not as OP. Like he has very similar crafts to what Mueller had when he's playable, and even has a very similar S craft, except they're smaller and don't hit as hard because he's not as strong as his big brother. So you unfortunately don't get to go ham with Mueller, but it is what it is. And yeah, I'll go ahead and get this off the screen because I think it's made its point. Okay. So that'd be one thing I can do if we actually know that we're doing the duo show from now on. I will attempt to take anything, at least that I'm talking about, and scribble together a quick infographic like that. That was done on the fly, so I don't know how well that turned out.
I guess we've got something we can thank Terrible Isekai for.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm enjoying Reverie. I do like the gameplay of the series. I have broken it at this point and had it broken for a while now. But it's fun to just make the numbers get ridiculous. Like there's things you can do, like the strategies just go on forever. Like you can literally one-shot bosses.
I honestly, I just played Sky entirely straight. Like I did everything in the most normie fashion conceivable.
Yeah. Well, I would do my first runs. I actually got the completion without a guide on this one because it's so straightforward. Even collecting the books, all the books is literally just buy them in the shop. As long as you check every single shop when you get to a new area, you'll get the book achievement. There's no hunting in this game. The character note achievement, except for at the very end when the game tells you to go run around Crossbell in the surrounding areas before you go off to the very definitely final dungeon. All the character notes are given to you. That's a new thing they added in Cold Steel 3 onwards. Another collectible. The treasure chests are now very easy to find and trackable. And if you have the Moonlens quartz, which you can get really, really, really early, it'll just show them to you on the map. So getting the collectibles in this game is very, very easy. They clearly wanted the focus to be on sending these characters off with a farewell story and giving you a toy box to play with for the franchise. Now that it's going to be moving away both from this area of the map and this type of gameplay, or at least this gameplay system. It's still going to be an JRPG, but yeah. So the only thing I haven't talked about with it, I is the story of True Reverie Corridor and whether that's when it finishes and what the final boss is like. If that's worth really going into and talking about. Other than that, you'll know if you want to play this game by the time you get to this point in the Cold Steel games while you're going through them. If you enjoyed like all the other Trails games, you'll like this one, and I think it's told fairly well. I don't think it's the best one. I think Sky the Third, Sky Second Chapter, uh, Azure, all those are tell a better story. But it's not. We're not at Cold Steel 2 or Cold Steel 3. We're not at the bottom of the franchise, but this because this is a competently done franchise to begin with. You even the bad entries relative to the other ones are still quite a bit above a usual JRPG in terms of the stuff that the game does well. So I'm still going to recommend the series. I'm not going to recommend this game to anybody, obviously, that is not already a fan. So my recommendation is based solely on whether or not I've sold you on the previous Trails games.
Well, it
Because
doesn't really have anything for anybody who's not a fan.
yeah, this is not a game for anybody
Like
except for
you couldn't pick it up and play it and have it make any sense.
no. And but here's the reason I bring this up is because there are some idiots trying to do that. Like the fact that NISA was going to localize and release this game without the cross-spell games being localized blows my mind because you will not understand anything, not even the main story. Uh, and all the big reveals about how we have two different sets of events that have happened, unless you play the crossbell games.
Yeah, maybe they should just stick to numerical episode naming.
Yeah, so well, they should have just released. It wouldn't have been that bad if they just released them in order, but because of the debacle that XE got into uh, with uh, with not realizing just how big a game and job they took on originally, they got behind, and Cold Steel was already out by the time they would have started localizing Azure, and the PSP was it didn't have a PC version yet. So the PC of the localizing Trails to Zero and Azure just didn't make a whole lot of sense at the time. And they always said, okay, yeah, if he gets a PC port, we'll go back and do it. But then Xseed sold the franchise off to NISA. And for the first two Cold Steel games, you can get away with playing those ahead of Azure and Zero, but I don't recommend it. I think it'll be a much better experience for you if you do the crossbow games first. But for some reason, that after they sold it to NISA, NISA just refused to do the localization for the crossbow games until a fan group did it, and they went okay, we can't have you doing that because that's money in our pocket that you're not letting us get, even though we refuse to do it ourselves. So they got them in there, and the crossbow games were generally well translated after the editing process was done by the original XE guys, because they brought the original XE guys in to basically come in and edit the Geofront translation so it wasn't as zoomer. And you got something pretty decent out of that. This game has one giant mark against it, and it has nothing to do with it being a Trails game. It has everything to do with NISA released the game. And NISA, I have some pictures that I can't put on the screen, but I can drop in live show chat that I sent to Ibu in real time of very common errors that they are slowly patching out. But my favorite one was on Muse's weapon. You will notice one of them goes Florentine, Florentine +1, Florentine +2, Florentine _3. And this causes all kinds of text bugs whenever you hover over it in your inventory.
Lol.
And so you have that one. You just have like Cold Steel 3 all over again. Item descriptions that just are straight up wrong, especially for recipes. When you cook a recipe, whatever it says, you can almost be sure that is not what it does. Like, the food you cook in the game is just like, okay, you know how the CP bars only go up to 200, right? For your S breaks? Uh,
Yeah.
so, will you kindly explain to me what the heck a food that restores CP of 300 is going to do?
It gives you the zoomies.
Yeah, it doesn't actually do anything. The Trinity Fizz in that thing doesn't actually do anything it says it does. It restores 50 CP. It restores uh that's still a really good piece of food, but it only restores 50. It restores a little bit more EP than it lists, and it does not restore 3000% HP. Now they are slowly patching these. They just fixed Trinity Fizz this morning. But man, Nisa, stop doing this. They did this with Cold Steel 3 as well. They didn't do it with 4. 4 was decent. But they dropped the ball with 3 and they dropped the ball with this one. Where on release week, they will, instead of going and spell checking their own damn game, they will just let the fans find all the errors and report it to them, and they'll patch it in that that week or the next few weeks. What is wrong
Well,
with you?
it's cheaper than doing it themselves. What can I say?
I mean, yeah, I get it. I understand the logic, but it's just scummy. Like, some of us that genuinely like this series would like to, be able to restore CP in mid-story before we get to the True Reverie Corridor and have OP gear. Maybe it would have changed how we played quite a bit if we could actually tell what the recipes did. And it's all over the place. I didn't notice more than a couple typos in actual written text in the game. But man, the item descriptions, the ability descriptions, the underscore in how did you mess? How? there is. This is literally you didn't proofread anything. Nobody went through here and proofread a dang thing. Man, just Nisa ticks me off so much whenever they do a translation. And
I have other concerns, like Manios.
yeah. So now the people that do the PC port have actually made a very robust PC port this time. They've learned how to grapple with this thing, and we're given adequate time to I think they're called Durante or something, and we're given adequate time to properly integrate PC settings directly into the game itself this time, instead of just having a weird pseudo launcher that you had to pop up for Cold Steel 3 and 4 because they were only given the files for the console games. So they had better resources this time from Falcom themselves with the base game files, because Falcom actually has started releasing their games on PC themselves in Japan now, because they realized that that's a much more lucrative market if you include PC instead of, for some reason, arbitrarily trying to keep your games console exclusive, which they did for the longest time for no discernible reason.
Well, every developer in Japan did that for the longest time. Like PC game development was not a thing in Japan until very recently.
Yeah. So they're finally given them the resources to make it, and they've done a very good job with making the PC port have plenty of options. TB would love it. It has an FOV slider.
You still have the option to use turbo to get stuck in terrain.
They've actually fixed up the turbo now that they have more tools. There's a big old detailed blog post about it, about how this turbo mode should not have the same types of bugs if you go at ×6 speed. So, and I've been going at ×5 and ×6 in True Reverie Corridor and haven't clipped through anything yet. So, it appears to be working, at least semi-functionally. And they have made very passive-aggressive kind of noises in the direction of Nisa, because they keep getting the complaints. They're responding on the Steam forums and stuff to people that have questions about the PC port, and are responding as fast as they can. And are not very happy about getting all these reports about all these mistranslations and typos because there's nothing they can do about those until Nisa acknowledges them and has something ready for the consoles as well. So they've been firmly giving Nisa not an outright shove under the bus, but more like a gentle trip in the bus's general direction, which makes sense. I wouldn't want to work with Nisa either. So yeah, I think that's going to cover the Trails into Reverie talk for a bit. You might get a little bit more from it, me talking about it, once we get to I get to the end of the post game, which this game is relatively short compared to all of them because we don't need to set up everything. We're just going out the gate. So you're probably only looking at about a 35-ish hour main story, with the rest of it all being true Reverie corridor stuff. So yeah, you can totally, if you get a good week like I got, you can totally blitz this in a week, the main story in a week. But yeah, it's good. It's a good send off for these two arcs. I'm looking forward to what they set up in Kuro, and yeah, we will see what happens when that time comes around. But for now, Trails gets put back in the box. Well, not right away. I got to finish the post game because I'm obsessive like that and have to. I'm not sure I'm capable of stopping myself. But after that's done, Trails goes back in the box until the next entry in the franchise comes. And I think that's all I got for that. I've rambled on that as long as I possibly can, and we are at time. Well, we're way over time actually. So after the goats, we should probably call it there. So I guess I will go ahead and call for closing comments then. So we need to start looking at wrapping this up.
So I guess next week we'll do Seraphis's email.
Yeah, because this is a long show already, and I don't want Seraphis's email to get buried. One, and two, all of us will be here. So yeah, I guess we'll do that then. We got some topics that we can carry over to next week. The Skullgirls debacle has gotten funnier. That stupid Microsoft thing has finally reached its end, it looks like, for now. What else I got in there? FanFest is coming up with a bunch of announcements. There's a Game Boy Advance game coming out. A whole bunch of stuff we could talk about. But I don't want to... the other reason I don't want to keep going is because if I try and stay up too much later, I'm going to not be able to get to sleep in time and wake up for church. Or I'm going to fall asleep at the keyboard. I'm running on Monster right now.
Yeah, I'm going to be sort of in that state next week, but over the coming week, I think there's deployment of the new story for Blue Archive. There's deployment of, I think the people were saying the 20-something for the 4.5 patch for FF.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not 100% sure about that. And there's going to be a live letter on the 20-something, I think.
Yeah, the live letter's happening at FanFest, I think.
Yeah, concerning 4.5.
Yeah. They're also teasing the next, or not teasing, but there's people are saying that somebody said the next expansion is going to be talked about at FanFest.
I think they're almost certainly going to at least tease some content from it because the time is ripe, basically. Like, Endwalker is definitely in its wind down phase, and honestly, Hype is sort of at a nadir right now, and I place a non-trivial amount of the blame on that on the artifact weapon line.
Yeah,
it's just such a departure from form.
Yeah, and there's just, unless you really like Eureka Orthos, there's nothing to grind for. So yeah, I have noticed that the world feels in general just way more like I came back around in the wind down of Shadowbangers, but the world still felt fairly alive and like people were all over the place doing random stuff. It feels much more barren and like there's not as much enthusiasm. There's not as much talk in the chat. There's just a lower energy of player that's on right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's always like this. Like, if you were playing around the close of Shadowbringers, you would have seen the same phenomenon. I saw the same phenomenon around the close of around Reborn, around the close of Heavensward. Like, it always looks the same.
Yeah, so
We're already in the closing phases, and I feel like it's a little bit. It feels weirdly early somehow, and I think that that's partly because as a casual player through most of the history of this game, like I only did raiding during Binding Coil of Bahamut. Um, it's I've usually set my clock on the expansion by how many phases of relic weapon have we got right now, and we've had like 2. So
yeah,
it feels to me, it feels like we're still early in the expansion for some reason.
yeah. And the fact there has been no relic weapon grind to really put time into this expansion for the casual player. Like, there's still stuff to do in the game, but it's all stuff from other expansions. It feels
Yeah.
like this expansion hasn't. I
I
don't
mean,
know.
if you were a player who had the time to keep up to date, you wouldn't have much to do.
Yeah, I've started to wind down on grinds I actually want to do, and now there's stuff like go get bi-colored gemstones to buy all the music rolls at all the gemstone vendors, and go finish Eureka, stuff like that. So I've been very disappointed with the lack of a relic weapon to give me a reason to get on, because at least it would be something where I could interact with people, and people would be there'd be a level of energy there of people trying to do something. Like even in the back part of Shadowbringers, Baja was still had a lot of people talking, and the energy was still really good there. But we were there
I
today.
mean, there was a lot of energy just in like, particularly in the Eden raids. There were heaps of people doing Eden normals in the end of Shadowbringers when I was rounding out my playthrough of it. Like, I spent a lot of time doing those raids just for fun of it
Yeah,
because I liked them. The fights were fun, and there were lots of people there. Lots of people were talking in the raid chat and so on because they needed stuff for their relic weapon, so they were just spamming the raids. So
yeah.
there was just a lot of play, like in the most colloquial sense of the word. There was a lot of play happening at the time.
Even if you don't want to interact with whatever the current relic grind is personally at expansion launch, the simple fact that it exists seems to energize other aspects of the game as well, because they often, or at least in the past, have had several steps where you got to go back and do older stuff, or you've got to go do miscellaneous other stuff from the same expansion to get the junk you need. So they were able to re-inject people and get people back around moving through the content again, so that you can actually go there and interact with people. And when you force people to do that, you get more than just the stoic grinding types or the people that are doing it out of or doing their dailies out of habit or whatever. So you can actually interact with people again, which is what I miss about the previous relic weapons existing. But because throughout all of Endwalker, because there hasn't been a relic weapon to grind, I'm blaming it on that, but it could be a myriad of other reasons. Uh, it just kind of feels like the world doesn't have as much bounce to it.
Yeah, what the thing that I would liken it to is if this expansion, more than the previous expansions I've gone through, feels more like a WoW expansion. I'm not saying it is a WoW expansion or it's like a WoW expansion, but it feels more like the temperament of a WoW expansion, where the world is basically dead
Yeah,
because everybody's just they log in outside the raid dungeon, they go into the raid dungeon, and they do their raiding for the week. They come out, they go to the AH, they restock on their consumables, and they log out outside the raid dungeon again.
even in that Zadnor we were in, did you see anybody in chat say anything more than a couple call outs for the Dalradia and LFG Z3?
That was pretty much just LFG type stuff, yeah.
Yeah, like that was it. When I was there, and the community still had some bounce to it, uh, and people were actually actively grinding there. I got to talk to people. I wouldn't say I made friends there because I treat the word friend a little more respectfully than people do nowadays.
And
But
Zoomers do.
yeah, like a Facebook friend is not a friend; they're an associate, maybe. But I got to recognize names there and have conversations with people and actually experience an MMO for once in a long time. But there's none of that going on today.
Yeah, I feel like they have like the parts to assemble that creature were on the workbench, but they didn't put them together correctly.
Yeah,
Because like their whole they're releasing another Criterion dungeon in the rest of the month, the back end of the month. And I see no reason to believe it's not going to fall just as flat as the previous one based on the stuff that they've said about it. And then it won't be because the content is not good. It'll be because they did not install that piece of content in such a way that it vitalizes the community.
yeah. In synth, it's all good and well to say you should just want to do content for content's sake, but the fact of the matter is, in an MMO game, getting the community to play the game is important, and getting a bunch of the community together to play that piece of content so that more people
It's,
are talking
it's,
about it.
it's not it's not even just that. While that is a component, the fact is that it doesn't matter how much people want to play a piece of content or not at all, because this is an MMO. That means in order to participate in anything, a toll has to be paid, and that toll is based on the amount of time that you put in to accrue the means necessary to participate. And people have a finite amount of that currency that they can use to pay those tolls. And if they can't get anything out of it that will allow them to contribute to the next toll payment, they can't afford it. Like, it's not that people don't want to do Criterion because there's no reward. It's that people can't afford to do Criterion because it will incur a debt that they can't pay.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like that debt is a little less severe in Final Fantasy than others, but it's still
It is
there.
because Final Fantasy historically has not been built around forcing people to do one thing, or it has been sufficiently lavish with its rewards that it didn't matter what that one thing was that you chose to do. I mean, the Shadowbringers model was great. Like I got a handful of bits and pieces to contribute towards my relic weapon today, and we didn't have to use this method to get it. This was one casual low impact method that we could do, but we could have, I could have bent my efforts towards raids instead or something like that
Yeah,
and
we
accomplished a similar end. But in the case of Shadowbringers, you've got these different types of pieces of content are installed with rewards that pay out to multiple different ends. Like if I was trying to gear alts, I started the day with 1,000 poetics, and now I have 1,900 poetics, and I made no effort to gather poetics today.
yeah, Pasha just hands them out like candy, especially
Yeah.
Z3 Zadnor.
But the thing is, in Criterion, you are choosing to do the content, but you are, rather than gaining something which you can pay into another activity, which will pay your entrance toll to some other activity, you are simply spending your time, and that time falls into the abyss. You are losing the ability to participate in something later because of the content decision that you made on that day. It is not, oh, well, you make an arbitrary choice to participate in an arbitrary piece of fun that you want. No, no. You are investing your time in such a way that while you are enjoying something, you are not hamstringing yourself somewhere else.
Yeah,
You are not able to leapfrog into another piece of content from something like Criterion because the reward scheme is badly designed. It's not just about incentives, it's about time economy. Time economy is not just a thing for hardcores, and this seems to be a delusion that a lot of MMO developers fall into, that, oh, well, casuals don't care about their time economy, or they only care about playing the game in 20-minute bursts. No, 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 no. That's not the way real casuals play the game. Real casuals who are gamers, who are casuals, who are playing an MMO casually, they do not play 20 minutes a day. They can't afford to play 20 minutes a day. They play 4 hours on their one day off. And you need to make that reward pay off because you only have those hours to spend on that one day.
yeah. It is important to let burst play be rewardable if the player has a clear goal in mind. That
A criterion is a way of like dumping a quarter of your free time for the week on doing nothing. And instead of earning the currency required to fund that next quarter next week you've got to spend that quarter of time playing catch up because you invested the previous one in that. Like, these things all need to pay into each other to keep the time economy turning around, and they had it pretty much right in Shadowbringers and dropped the ball in Endwalker for no reason.
Yeah, they could have made simple refinements to the Shadowbringer system and just kept going with that. But for some reason, they decided on this radical departure with the buy it from a shop.
Yeah, I think that this is just, they are doing that thing that World of Warcraft did in the back end of Classic, where the only game type that exists is in-game raiding, and the concerns of that particular player base have become paramount. And I can understand the logic that leads you there, especially in this day and age, where a lot of the casual player base decide what they do and what they're focused on based on what they see streaming of the big high-end players. But in terms of the time economy of normal players, that stuff doesn't work. Like, people aren't interested in participating in that type of play unless they are the sort of person who is led by the nose by streamers, which fortunately is still only a modest amount of people.
Yeah, most people are going to get on and they're going to take a look at the content they got available. Go, okay, what can I do that I actually want to do that's going to give me something that's worth my time? And they're going to weigh those factors and go, okay, well, I could go do some deep dungeons today. I wanna try and get a little bit deeper, make some progress. Maybe I can get some nice stuff from Sachs. Maybe I can recruit some of my friends to drag along with me. That'll all be good. They're like, oh, I'm gonna do some treasure maps. That'll get me some gil. I can use that to buy some more crafting stuff later and up my crafter set or something. Or they
Yeah,
can go,
it seems to be a very, very simple-minded attitude floating around that, oh well, if you are playing for the reward, then you're not a real gamer because you're not enjoying yourself. No, that's not how it works. Like, people won't enjoy doing a thing if they know they're incurring a debt by doing so. It's not that they're not getting a reward, it's that they're getting a negative reward. They're losing the time that they spend
yeah,
because they're going to have to spend that time later. Like, if I don't get 1,000 poetics today because I was doing something else and I was leveling other characters, that's a suit of gear that I need to build up for that character at a later time, doing something perhaps that I don't really want to do on that day. But because I want to advance that character now, I'm forced to do that stuff. Like, why would you structure it that way where you've got this sort of weird drain line of time and then put a huge financial investment in developing that content? Like, there's just no reason. Like, why is Criterion not plugged into Relics? Like, it's like you've got these two wires that are just dangling for no reason.
yeah. It's I don't know why they dropped the ball on it so hard. I don't know who's feeding Yoshi P this information. I don't know if he's just simply fallen into the trap that a lot of MMO developers seem to, where the hardcore raiders are the ones that are usually the loudest, and that's the only voice he's hearing. And they
Yeah,
do,
I think if F16 is out now, he needs to lay out the content roadmap, then take a 2 week holiday, and then come back and fix the shit.
yeah, because this is honestly Endwalker if every expansion was like Endwalker, this game would be I would not play it.
No, it would not be what it is now. Like, the story is still great, but it would be a game that people would play the story mode and then not play any of the rest of the content because there's too much is just sort of flapping loose right now in this expansion. It's not all of the parts are not plugged into each other and the engine is not cranking over the way it's supposed to. All of the parts are there, but they have not been correctly assembled. They've just sort of been slapped together all higgledy-piggledy, hoping that it's going to hold together. Nobody's been overseeing that the performance is doing what it's doing. That all the minutia is being seen to. Like, they keep making adjustment after adjustment after adjustment to the raids in order to get them just right, to try and keep the raiders as happy as possible. That minutia, that micro scale stuff is being managed. The macro scale stuff, how the systems all hang together with respect to each other, is not being managed at all.
Yeah, it's been a right mess. We're gonna get a little bit of a grind that we can do with the Blue Mage stuff, but Blue Mage is one class with 10 levels.
Yeah.
That's a solo experience for leveling it for the most part for most people, and a one and
And
done
honestly,
for spell collecting.
I honestly don't actually enjoy Blue Mage very much, and it's not for a good reason. The best reason I have for it is that I just hate having to constantly rearrange my hotbars.
Oh, I'm on
Like,
controller. It's even worse for me.
yeah, it is worse for you, but I just don't like it.
Yeah, I
The
know.
UI in Final Fantasy is so slow as it is. Like if I want to actually manage my Blue Mage stuff, I have to go and look up the Blue Mage spellbook and then page through pages, looking for the thing that I want, working out what icon I'm going to dispense with, what icon I'm going to replace, how it's going to work, what buttons are going to be bound to. Like, it's just a mess.
Yeah, I do
And I
not.
just don't want to participate in that mess because the Blue Mage is first and foremost, to me, just a UI design puzzle, and that's it.
So if I want to just get to my Blue Mage spellbook, I have to on controller because I do not have the hotbar economy for to put the spellbook anywhere on the controller hotbar. I have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 taps of the D-pad, scroll to Blue Mage spellbook. I have to enter the Blue Mage spellbook, and then I have to sit here and mash the D-pad all over the place to rearrange these spells to turn them on. Because first you got to turn them off before you can take them out of the active actions, and you gotta scroll the spell you want, turn it onto the active action. Then I have to reach over and grab the mouse because there is no UI element that's reasonable to add it to the hotbar, and drag it where I want it for every single spell change. And then I usually only want it for one specific instance, and then I have to do something with the other button because if I go just remove it from my hotbar, I'll have to just go find it again. So I usually wind up throwing it in a random spot on my click bars and just and swapping it back in. So it's just I understand the UI mess.
Yeah, it's just like you can go to the actions menu for Blue Mage and there'll be a bunch of actions there, but for whatever sodding reason, it's just the ones you've got assigned. Like, why is it not just that all of your spells end up in the actions menu and you pick the ones that you want up to a limit? And then just grade the other ones out once you've hit your limit. Like, you don't need to have this bizarre system where you click in a button to assign it to the action menu and the actions and traits so that becomes enabled to attach to your hotbars. Like, this is not a case of spaghetti code. This is a case of introducing new spaghetti code.
Yeah, I don't understand why we couldn't have a grid of 104 buttons all visible at once, and you're given a budget of however many actions these are. What is it, 24? Of 24, and you can put a check mark on 24 of them, and you can click and drag those 24 onto wherever you want. That would be so much easier. If you want to have all this extra fluff and where to get the spell and its rank and
But
its damage
I
type and all that,
totally understand the people that think that it's the bee's knees. Like, I get it. Like, I understand the fun of the blue magic thing and the way you can have heaps of like bizarre and game breaking abilities that you can use in these specific contexts to do these specific things. And I understand it. I do. I get it. It's just that that's really the content. That's the content.
yeah. And furthermore, it's a relatively quick one and done. Aside from grinding out the really rare spells, which are still one and done, but not going to take you too long if you put your mind to it. Blue Mage just ain't very meaty as a
Yeah, it's a toy. It's a toy to play with. It's not really content. It's like it's a toy with a specific arena to drive that toy around in. And like, I'm not saying it's bad or that it shouldn't be there or that it's a waste of resources because I know that there are people that love it. It's just that really that's it.
Yeah.
That's the content. The Blue Mage is like emblematic of the problem with this expansion. The Blue Mage is a whole game system that does not interact with any other game systems in any way, except during Moogle Tombstone season.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can apply it at least to other game systems as you rank it up.
Well, for fate farming, like there's like what
Yeah.
else?
I mean,
That's it.
fate farming, or maybe I don't know. You could find a reason to solo the dungeons, although I'm not entirely sure what the reason
But
would
you
be.
can the vast majority of the dungeons you can solo on any class.
Yeah, I don't know why you would want to level sync to solo the dungeon. Maybe you really want the mount that you have to be synced for to get to drop in some of the dungeons. I don't know, but yeah, you can at least take it into fate farming and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, but the thing is that when you're applying the Blue Mage in that way, it's not really other content; it's Blue Mage content. Like that's the way that is actually played. When people get together, their team of Blue Mages to go clear something, that's Blue Mage specific content. It barely touches any other type of content. Like it's, oh well, this is for collecting a cosmetic. Well, then that effectively becomes a cosmetic you earn through the Blue Mage system.
Yeah.
Like that's not really content that interacts with everything else. Like you're not going to use that to work on your relic weapon because you can't make the Blue Mage obligatory for relic weapons. And if the Blue Mage was like the shortcut to a relic weapon, that would be, well, that would be all that people used for it. It would not be part of the sort of the content ecosystem. And that's sort of the issue with Blue Mage, is that it's always adjunct to the content ecosystem rather than a true part of it. And that doesn't it doesn't need to be the case, but in a expansion where your problem is that the content ecosystem is rubbing itself raw against its own parts because it's not turning properly, like introducing an expansion to an existing system that exacerbates that problem by being another time sink that doesn't apply to anything else. Like the only mercy in the Blue Mage system is that people who need the allied seals or the tomestones can rack some up with it. But that aspect of it isn't being expanded. That aspect will remain exactly the same.
I think they are adding. Did they say they're adding more carnival?
I mean, they certainly are, but they're not adding to its interaction with Endwalker game systems.
Yeah. I don't.
I expect it's still going to be allied seals and poetics,
Yeah.
meaning that Blue Mage has not expanded. The content within Blue Mage has expanded, but its significance to the rest of the game ecosystem has not changed. It's exactly the same as it was. And I'm not saying that it needs to change. What I'm saying is that you are just highlighting the weaknesses of your expansion by choosing that as the thing that you do in the sort of like the 11th hour when the game needs a bit of a shot in the arm.
It
Delivering Criterion dungeons which interact with nothing and Blue Mage which interact with nearly nothing is like, well, really? What's
it
next? Oh, we're also introducing a relic weapon that just you spend, your easy tomestones on, and there's no actual gameplay involved. Oh, fantastic.
yeah, it would be one thing for these systems if it was coming out alongside, another Baja or something. Or even just a relic grind of books I would take at this point. I would do the stupid books again.
Like the Bosnia was such a universal Lego piece. Like you could attach so many things to it.
Yeah.
Anything that you needed to bolt a system on, give a system another point of contact with the rest of the game, you could do that by using Bosnia as a hub. Like just you can bolt poetics onto there, you can bolt exp onto there, you can bolt new content dungeons onto there, install an entire new system of the lost actions or whatever. Can all be sitting there. Like you can just make that thing bristle with extra systems and draw out from that what you need to. But there is no central hub for content in this
Yeah.
expansion. And like the expansion that is most like that was Heavensward because they didn't have a central hub for content either. But the relic weapon chain involved participating in every excellent piece of content there was.
Yeah. And it's like even a Realm Reborn at least had the relic right now. It was
Well, the
mostly
Realm Reborn was laterally enormously broad. Like if you're looking at the Realm Reborn's contributions to the game, like it has, the gold saucer, for instance.
yeah.
Like
So
the breadth of a Realm Reborn was extreme. I don't think it needs to compete on this battlefield because it's the one laying the foundations. But Endwalker has to stand up against Shadowbringers.
yeah, and
And as a complete production of a system, like a whole expansion system, so far it pales in comparison.
yeah, you could have taken the Baja system and refined it and just kept working on that. Maybe you didn't have to make a new zone or something.
But
Maybe,
the big raiders who stream, they all hated Bosnia because they didn't want to spend time there.
yeah, it's a these people that do one part of the game, they get all the attention because it gets all the publicity, and they do the hard, super hard ultimate raids. Like I'm here to tell you, progressing the duels in Baja is probably about on your own, where you need to figure it out in a limited amount of attempts. and really learn it probably takes as much reading time as any of these savage encounters. So it's still there. There's content in the game that is relatively difficult that does not involve raiding. The deep dungeon community that's cleared Heaven on High and Palace of the Dead, like that's all there. But for some reason, the raiders just have this super. Well, I know why. I know how raiders think. I used to be one. Uh, that everything should just be focused around raids, and that's their part of the game, and that's the only part they think matters. They think the rest of the game is there to facilitate raiding, and if you're
I
not on
mean,
board with the side,
if you want to do deep dungeon, you're going to get materia. You're going to get your top tier tomestones for getting your current gear. Like if you want to look at deep dungeons, that contributes to that raiding ecosystem.
yeah,
Like that is an example of a system like Bosnia that is plugged into all the other systems, interacts with all the other systems. You're contributing to your personal sense of accomplishment as you progress that piece of content, which is very progressible and has an internal logic to its progression. Plus, you're getting resources to spend in every other type of content. You're getting your cosmetics, you're getting your housing furnishing, you're getting, a menagerie of other random crap that just falls out of those bags, including a whole pile of fireworks I don't want. Like, there's that system is integrated very well into the whole of Final Fantasy 14 in a way that most of the stuff that they're bringing out in Endwalker just isn't.
yeah, it's you got what I was getting at by taking digs at the hardcore raiders in this game is they they seem blind to this idea that other content can be rewarding, and because they don't want to have to do it. They
Well,
seem
because they are the ones that have the toxic have to participate in this attitude. I mean, they made their decision that the best investment of time for them was to know life hard in the Savage raids and to do all that was necessary to prepare for the Savage raids. But while they resent the cap on tomestones, for instance, they hate it. They hate it because they want to know life until they've got everything and then stop playing. Like that cap is implemented for the reason of preventing you from feeling like you have to also grind this and also grind that. No, you pick your strategy, you proceed in your strategy, and you complete whatever you intended to do, and that's all. That's all you're supposed to do. They hated Bosnia because Bosnia was a means to obtain power that was not what they wanted to do because it involved interacting with other people who are not reliable. I mean, interacting with other people in an MMO is verboten, and they would have to go there if they wanted to get the relic weapon, and whereas the relic weapon was previously something that they felt was because A Realm Reborn set the precedent where it was one of the most powerful weapons in the game, so it was definitely a raider thing, and the raiders had to do it, and so they formed teams to really super efficiently farm for things, and all of a sudden, oh well, actually this farming is based on random people that you meet doing fates in a special area for the most part, or random people in the party finder or whatever, and you otherwise you've got to get together a full raid group to constantly spam the raiding method. Like they didn't like it because it required them to
yeah.
deviate from the path that they wanted to be on. They were not interested in variation. They're just interested in being at the top of their particular game style. I don't think that this is a very big segment of the player base. That's the thing. There are only a few of these people. There are lots of raiders who are very sort of cosmopolitan about content types. They will do whatever in the downtime, but there is this narrow group of fanatics who, for some reason, are getting all the attention from the devs. Who are getting the devs like hysterically bending over backwards to adjust machinist damage by 1% or whatever.
Yeah, it's we've been going on too long. We've got to wrap it up. But
You mean you have to go to bed?
yeah, I'm about to fall asleep on the keyboard. But yeah, it's a mess. This won't be the last time we complain about Endwalker. I'm sure. I'm really souring on this expansion the longer I spend playing it.
Yeah, like the initial experience was great, but it wilted pretty much immediately afterwards.
Yeah, I of the bits I played a bit in Realm Reborn and never made it to max level. Played some in Heavens where barely made any progress at all, and came back late Shadowbangers and and enjoyed myself for the entirety of Shadowbangers and early Endwalker. And just throughout Endwalker has been a slog as far as Endwalker content is concerned. I have
It's
only
just
enjoyed myself
is it-
doing old expansion content.
I feel like it's because it keeps getting your hopes up
Mm-hmm.
and then dashing them. It's like, oh, ho, there's this new thing coming down the pike, and it's Time Stones again. And it's Time Stones again. And it's Time Stones again. Oh, and this time it's not even Time Stones, it's just no reward. No reward at all. Enjoy.
You know, like for a while, I'm just like, okay, well, I'll just go do the duels in Baja then. Oh, okay. I guess I'll go get the Eureka grind done. Okay, I guess I'll go level my crafting and gathering and get decent at that. Like I'm just going back to older stuff.
You know, the reason it's not like I did not play less when I was playing Shadowbringers. I didn't play less. I didn't play less when I was playing Stormblade. I didn't play less when I was playing Heavenswood. But this time is the only time I've ever had all my characters at max level. And the reason I have all my characters at max level is because I ran out of other stuff I wanted to do.
Yeah, it's just
Because normally I was just drowning in options. Like in all those other expansions, I had so many different things to do that I couldn't fixate on the project of knuckling down and doing the whatchamacallit, the character grind, because my normal procedure was that I would get to the current, I would level up 1 or 2, maybe 3 at most jobs to max level, and then I would get distracted working on the current expansion's relic weapon for them, and then monomaniacally fixate on that until it was finished. Except that didn't happen this time,
yeah,
because when they released relic weapons, I bought them outright.
yeah, bought them from a shop. And we also, when I go back and I do these old expansions, relic weapon grinds, I'm doing them much faster than the people at the time did because they always nerf the relic weapon grinds. They added the echo to Eureka. You know, the Baja grind had quite a few chunky grindy bits cut down, and they added the raise system, and the entire first half of it in Southern Front can be done with lost actions earned in Zadnor, which are power force multipliers of an absurd magnitude if you take a minute to go read up how to use them. Like you can just, and that's not counting the outright just nerfs to quantities that a few of them have had. Like I'm going through these grinds faster than if they were at current content, and I was kind of excited to see, you know, as a player in game for once in this game, a relic weapon not nerfed for post expansion release, and see what the grind's really like as it goes on. But I just didn't have that opportunity. It was
Yeah,
taken.
I remember it from back in Realm Reborn. We were talking with the other members in my FC at the time. It was like, oh, how are you going with your Scorpion Atma today? And it's hasn't dropped today. I think I'll do something else for a while because I don't feel lucky. I've been here doing, I've done 35 fates already and haven't seen it, so I'll move on to something else. Like, not to say that doing 35 fates is necessarily fun, but there was a sort of like collective community mountain climbing being done.
Yeah, and that's the kind of feeling I was hoping to get out of this, to give me something to just have in the background to constantly work on when, you know, I was in downtime. Like right before Reverie came out, I was searching for something to do because I didn't want to start a new game when Reverie is coming out because I know that's going to eat all my time when it comes out. I was going to go pretty hard on it, and I didn't want to have to just interrupt a project in the middle of that. And having a relic weapon grind would have been great. And there's been plenty of times like that throughout Endwalker's life cycle where having a nice current expansion grind to do would have been wonderful.
Should have just
But
read Atlantis Lost Belt.
yeah, but but no, you just buy it in a shop.
I, believe me, I am, as somebody who did experience the relic grinds before, I am just as disappointed. Like, it's it is a different experience when everybody is climbing that mountain together.
Yeah,
Because everybody was working on because I was in a relatively casual FC and everybody was working on their relic weapons, and occasionally two people would be working on the same thing and they pair up and they do stuff together for a while and so on, and it was a lengthy job. It was on the scale of the old constructing of the airship as well.
yeah. In the last 2 years, they made it so one person can push the button. So
Yeah.
it doesn't they haven't reduced the requirements for any of them, I don't think. But if if you have a day and the gil and the motivation and a spreadsheet, you can do it yourself. That's what I did for the 2 airships and the 2 subs we have right now. And I've been diligently sending them out as much as I can. I let it lax this week, but I try to log on about once every 3 days at least and out to keep
Anyway,
rolling.
well, you got to go so that you can sleep. Otherwise,
Right.
you'll be useless.
Yeah, we keep rambling. We're good at this. This is why we need Fern.
Yeah, Fern,
Alright.
come back. This happens every time you go.
Yep. So super long show. Didn't mean for it to be, but it did. So we're gonna sign out, folks. You got anything for us to send us out?